interested in these?
He never explained it to me because I never asked him further because I never took interest on it.
So you just got these pictures from him without knowing why he sent them to you?
Much as I'm saying, he was just sharing with me to say there was this arrest and so forth, that people were arrested at OR Tambo and so forth, General Kumalo and so forth. So I said, what's happening now? Why are they arrested? He said, I don't know, he'll let me know, but I never followed up in that thing.
And on if one goes to page 570, one sees a list of people with case numbers. And SAP 14 numbers, occurrence book numbers. You see that?
I see it.
What was this?
At that time, I never even went through it. Much as I'm saying, I was not interested because he sent these things together with all this. I never went through it.
All right.
I think, Deputy Chief, I think what is curious and does require an explanation from somebody is the very specific information that Sergeant Nkosi is sharing with you. Firstly, at 467, where you've got those pictures, he gives you names. On the face of it, at least according to me, it suggests that these names must mean something to you. This is not just a sharing of what's on social media. He gives you names of people that have been arrested. At 467, he says General Gabela. He says Brigadier Madondo, and then there's General Kumalo. So there must be a significance to him mentioning the names. And then when you then turn to that page 570, which is the contents of a diary with names and case numbers, it's difficult to accept at face value that these had no significance for you. At the very least, one would expect you would have asked, why are you sending me these things? If you didn't know, you would have said, why are you sharing the diary with me? Who are these people that you have listed, Gabela, Madondo? Who are these people? Unless you tell us that, well, I always knew who Gabela is. I knew who Madondo is. I knew who Kumalo is. And so when he sent me those names, it made sense why he would just give me the names. You've just said you know nothing about this.
Commissioner, to be honest, I did not take interest. I don't follow, Commissioner, the news of SAPS a lot or any news. I did not, know them. Much as I asked him later to say what is happening. And he said General Kumalo was arrested coming from OR and all those kind of things. I never followed up. The chart at 475, I never took interest to go who are the names and so forth, because for me, it was of significant importance. It was not of significant importance to me.
Yeah, you see, but more the reason, from what you're saying, more the reason why there has to be a better explanation why he would have sent you this. You say you don't take any interest in SAPS matters. So on that account, Sergeant Nkosi woke up one morning on a topic that you have absolutely no interest in, decided to share with you information about who has been arrested, the names, that you say, I actually have no interest in that. But perhaps more importantly, certainly more importantly, he shares the contents of a diary which has people's names, case numbers, and OB numbers. That's not random information that you share with someone who's just interested about something that was in the paper. It's something that you share with the expectation that the person you are sending this to has an interest in receiving this, or would be interested to receive this kind of information.
I did not, Commissioner. At that time, I never took interest in this.
Thank you.
Can we then go to page 471? File 4. And there on the 12th of July 2025 at chat 3, you send a WhatsApp to Sergeant Nkosi that reads as follows. Morning, Captain. I can see, Ukuthi, that you have captured Mfowethu, and he wouldn't want to leave him. He wouldn't want you to leave him. You should gear yourself to do so forever, my brother. Mfowethu is the best person to be with, Ujuda Wetu, who will do great things for us, compared to Baba Wako Ngaseko. Now, what were you saying to Sergeant Nkosi when you said that he had captured Mr. Mnisi, the CFO?
I think we are reading this message, not taking into consideration that I tapped on a picture there, SC. It's not like I wrote this message purely, so there was a picture that I was tapping on it when I wrote this message.
Sorry, you say there was a picture
Yes.
that was on this message?
Yes.
That you sent a picture with this message?
Yes, I tapped on the picture, then I responded on the picture.
Oh, so this message was a reply to
The photograph,
to a photograph.
yes.
Are you referring to what appears under chat 2, or are you referring to something else?
I'm referring to, I think it's chat 2 that came. It was a picture that was sent to me. I tapped on it, then I wrote this message.
Are you able to take us there, perhaps, Mr. Chasolsi?
I'm not, it's not a picture, it is a video.
The video.
We may or may not be able to display it. Well, let me describe it. Well, do you recall what it was that you were responding to?
Yes, SC. Here, as I indicated to say, it was me responding to that picture that I was responding to. I want it here. I think I responded to it here.
Do you remember what it was, Deputy Chief?
When was?
In terms of content, do
Yes,
you
in
remember?
terms of content, Commissioner, I wanted to indicate to say he have captured the attention of the CFO, and much as I indicated there to say, I mean, you must get yourself to do so every time, because the CFO will always want to.
No, Deputy Chief, you said what you've just read now, or paraphrased at least part of it. You said that in response to a picture, and you say that picture is what appears under chat number 2. So the question by Mr. Chaskalson is, what was that? Do you recall what this was?
He was appearing there with the CFO on that picture.
Yes, Mr. Chaskalson.
Well, the video, if we, Chair, if we are given 2 minutes, I can produce the video. Can I suggest that we stand down for 5 minutes and we can then play the video?
Let's do so. We'll come back when we are called.
And we are going to pay them through unitary payment for a period of 25 years through a build, operate, and transfer, and that is going to happen after 25 years. So we'll pay them monthly and all of those activities.
And just to be clear, these private partnerships that you talk about, right? Would they be paid for the construction of these sites, or the construction and the management as well? Meaning that if I pass through that border control, who would they be? Would they be from this private partnership, or would they be from government?
Yeah, so if you look at the model that we have deployed, which is the PPP, is build, operate, and transfer, meaning that after they have built the infrastructure, or even during the construction, they will be doing REM activity, which is repairs and maintenance. And then they will do that for the next 25 years from the point where we occupy the building. So we will be using the building as Border Management Authority for the purposes of border management work. They will be doing repairs and maintenance, meaning they will be taking care of the maintenance of the building for 25 years. And on that basis, on year 25, they're going to make sure that every other electronic devices are repurposed to make sure that when we take over the building, we don't take over with aircons that will die in the next week or so, but we take over with well-serviced infrastructure, and that is basically when the government will take over the issues of maintenance and everything else, and the PPP will end at that point.
Okay, just the last thing, and it's very topical, as you know, as we talk right now, the March and March movement. They've been marching in different parts. Teguini or Durban the other day. Now it's been in Pretoria, Tshwane today. Right? How do you respond to their general feeling that border management has just allowed thousands of people undocumented into the country, and this cannot continue, and therefore, since whether it's border management or policing or Home Affairs, since they are unable to stop them, we have to stop them and effectively remove them from our country. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, you see, Ashraf, I think what we need to clear quickly, firstly, is the fact that people have been coming into the country for almost the past 30 years. And in them coming into the country, people ended up, being in the country illegally. So, for instance, there are people that would have entered, for example, the country illegally by just walking through into the borderline and all of those. There are some that would have come into the country legally and they later became illegal, maybe because the passports they came with, it was legitimate when they crossed the border and it expired while they're in the country and they never moved. So at the end of the day, from a border management perspective, I can say this, Ashraf, we are doing our best to make sure that from the point we took over this responsibility, people no longer walk into the country with impunity as they used to do. But the reality of it is people can only see the impact of our work when we have successfully got people out who are actually in the country illegally. And that work is done by Immigration Inspectorate of Home Affairs together with the police. Once they get them out, we must make sure that they no longer come back illegally into the country, and that is the essence. So I can say there's a lot of work that we are doing with all the various partners to make sure that we stabilize this environment of illegal migration, and the impact will be seen a bit later across the value chain in some few years to come.
Okay, I think that could make sense. It doesn't happen in one day, and we hope that these interventions absolutely make a difference. But just to conclude, then, do you have a comment to make about groups like March for March currently wanting action, not in a year's time or 2 years' time? They want action today, and in fact, they're taking action today.
Let me put it this way, Ashraf, and say on a weekly basis at the ports of entry, buses from the Department of Home Affairs arrive with people that are meant for deportation coming from Lindela. I mean, for example, I was in Beitbridge. The colleagues were telling me over 7 buses plus 14 buses a week actually go out of Beitbridge to Malawi, to Congo and other places. So there is work that is done. It's just that it won't be visible as the people are busy with their activities. That's the only thing that I can say. However, I can also confirm that we did meet with March and March. As much as last year, for example, we met with Operation Dudula. And what we were doing, we were demonstrating the work that we are doing to address this particular problem statement as demonstrated by themselves. And that is the essence. So it's just that it is not going to be just an overnight thing. The difference will be felt a bit later as we go through the value chain.
Okay, let's see what happens. I think the public, as you would understand, want to be convinced that from a border management or home affairs or policing, things are being done. Your point made about those are being sent back home, repatriation noted. Anyway, Dr. Michael Masiapato, appreciate your time. Border Management Authority Commissioner, this on a day they've announced a huge project that will change the face of border management in South Africa. That's the claim anyway, with 6 key points of entry, all being redeveloped, including high-tech technology to try and assist them. We'll talk about that as and when it happens and see how it unfolds. This is the National Pulse. Comments from you, bring them on. I'd like to get your reaction.
Attention all shoppers.
Our supermarket shelves are full of unhealthy food. It's often hard for me to know which foods are good for my family. The information on packaged food is complicated and hard to understand. I wish we had easy-to-understand warning labels on foods high in salt, sugar, and saturated fat. We have the right to know what's in our food. Support front-of-package warning labels on unhealthy packaged foods. Sign the petition on healer.org. That's HEALA.org.
Right, we've been counting on for a couple of weeks now, but let me remind you, Top Billing is back with a bold new chapter and fresh new faces leading the way. So get ready to experience the world of luxury, travel, design, and inspiring stories with dynamic new presenters, amongst them Zozibini Tunzi and many, many more, right? And they all bring you their unique style, energy, and perspective to every moment. The all-new season of Top Billing premieres this Thursday. So 2 days from today, right? 7 p.m. on S3, with a repeat on a Tuesday, or every Tuesday thereafter, 9:30 p.m. on SABC 1. Top Billing is back. You don't want to miss it.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
Right, so I referenced to March and March, and today they've been marching in the Pretoria Tshwane area, led, as always, by Jacinta Ngobese Zuma, right? They've staged a demonstration, and the central point, as was happened in Durban last week, or eThekwini, was that they believe that the local council not doing enough to address the issues of undocumented foreign nationals, so they are literally going to them person by person and telling them they should not be here. That's because they believe they've been turned a deaf ear. So what's happened this time round? With me covering the stories on Nhlanhla Nchingila, the SABC News reporter in the region. Appreciate your time and thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and the listeners at home.
Thank you so much. Right. So what's happened today with regards to the march and what they're claiming?
Well, what happened today is that they gathered at the Burgers Park and they marched all the way to Union Buildings. Apparently, they are demanding that all illegal immigrants should be deported back to their countries. Well, they claim that they are taking their jobs. Schools are overcrowded and the number of unemployment is very high due to the illegal immigrants, so they say. And so right now they want the president to answer to their demands and tell them when is he going to take back those people back at home, because there's nothing that they can do apparently. They say that the illegal immigrants are occupying everything in South Africa. And so if the president is not answering them, they will keep on marching until their concerns are being heard, until they get what they want. And we do understand that tomorrow they'll be having another leg in Joburg, whereby they'll be handing over their memorandum at the Gauteng legislature. It's still going to be the same. Civic movements will be there. Other political parties will be joining the march so that they can be heard.
And the thrust of their conversation is this, right? That they believe that not enough is being done to ensure that foreign nationals are not in this country. That came up again today. I mean, do they get any sense? Are they giving any hope that, in fact, there are conversations between them and government, notwithstanding your point about the president?
Well, I think what made them the most angry is that the Minister of Presidency highlighted something that if she says something about illegal immigrants, that means she'll be xenophobic. Hence, they took the stance that they'll be marching to the Union building, hoping that they'll be understood once they get there. Once the president gets time to read their demands, they'll be understood, because for now it looks like nobody is taking them serious. And so once they hand over their memorandum, get what they want, maybe they'll be heard. And we saw also there were several shops that were closed in Sunnyside as they were marching. They say they will keep on doing that up until they are heard.
So have shops been closed?
Yes, some shops were closed in Sunnyside. It was a standstill until...
But only Sunnyside or other areas too?
No, it was only Sunnyside, because they were marching via Sunnyside to the Union buildings. And I think they did it purposely because, Sunnyside is a very busy place. And so they wanted to send a message that if they are not deporting you to your countries, we will shut down all the shops here in Sunnyside and also within South Africa. Hence, tomorrow they'll be moving to Joburg, because when he spoke to Faith Mabusele, she did mention that in Johannesburg there are a lot of illegal immigrants, and so they want to send a clear message that they no longer want in South Africa.
And the march in Durban last week, turned violent. There's always accusation about who started what. What has been the position this time around?
No, what I can tell you is that it was a very peaceful march. The police visibility was very high. There was TMPD, the South African Police Service were there. They were conducting the march. And so what I can tell you is that there was no violation or whatsoever. Everything went peacefully.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add before I let you go?
Is that tomorrow they'll be in Joburg. And so for the people in Joburg, they should be on the lookout.
Be on the lookout. Thank you for your time, Nhlanhla Nchingila, the SABC News reporter, covering the story of the March and March movement, and they certainly are marching and marching. It's growing momentum. The question is, from a government perspective, are they addressing these concerns adequately? That means there are genuine concerns from people who believe that just far too many people who are poverty-stricken, far too many people in South Africa who do not have jobs, far too many people who have no hopes of jobs, and at the same time, and that's not a good thing, but at the same time, you then have far too many people in South Africa undocumented, so therefore illegally in the country, and somehow they've been given positions and they've been given jobs and they've been allowed to trade, and that's the gist of the frustration, which I think by its very nature will affect the jobless more than the very wealthy, because wealthier people have access to other things they can make a plan, and therefore these issues very much township based, hawker based, carries the brunt of the problem and the brunt of the fire in this case here. The question still for you is, how should government address this? I'm talking of as a sense of urgency, as opposed to later down the line, and where you sort of close down the borders. That's down the line. But for now, how should they address it to a way that is adequate, that is humane, but at the same time takes into account that if you're undocumented, you can't be here. But at the same time, it can't be a case of you can't have a single foreign national in a country. That just does not work. Not in a multilateral or multinational world that we live in. Welcome your thoughts on that issue. So if you're up for it, send us WhatsApp comments. In fact, we've got some WhatsApp comments we can take right away. So let's pick up that first on the earlier conversation we had around border management.
Ashraf, I've said it before that, Ramaphosa started with Lesotho. It will followed by Zimbabwe and Nigeria, because it's his favorite countries, and all borders will be open now. Automatically, he's strategizing us here in South Africa, so we will sit him back. It will be one way into South Africa. I've told you that even their president, those people, they want to be the South African. They're tired about to be into their own countries. Everyone will need himself in here. Their president also.
How do you know they want to be in South Africa? They're tired of their own countries, like they never want to go back. What are the root causes that forces them to leave? That's an issue that's also come up to say, why do people leave a country and willing to do so under tremendous hardship?
Ooh, Ashraf, not again. This is not make sure. Private and public companies together. And who are these companies that are not being mentioned? This is not make sure. I'm not trusting these people, not anymore.
You do not trust them. There's more. Here's another.
Good day, Ashraf and the team. Yeah, for Jesanda and his other guy from Durban, yes, they are raising a very concerning issue. But now the issue is how they are conducting it, because they are inciting violence, and which is making very dangerous. Because if you look now, Ashraf, there's a trade free of SADC countries. If you go to Zambia, you go to Zimbabwe, go to Mozambique, you find there are South Africans that are staying there. They are also doing business there. So it's the issue of they must not just think for themselves, but they must also think for those South Africans that are outside South Africa. Like even truck drivers, they cross the border, goes to other countries. I think it's also you're putting people in danger. So you need to conduct it with the bylaws of the country, not violence like the way they're doing.
Okay, absolutely. I mean, you can't condone violence. The flip side of that is there are people who believe they will do what they have to do because government is doing nothing. I'm not saying that's true. That's their sense of it. Right, 3:30 news headlines. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, the Border Management Authority has announced the appointment of 5 construction consortiums to redevelop 6 strategic ports of entry across South Africa at a cost of 12.5 billion rand. The SABC has reliably learned that controversial Northwest businessman Brown Mokgotsi has written to the Madlanga Commission to complain about the conduct of evidence leader Matthew Chaskalson. And the United Arab Emirates says it is withdrawing from the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC and OPEC Plus, delivering a major blow to the...
Chair, Mr. Mokgotsi was due to be recalled today. In the meantime, we've been informed by his legal team that they are going to apply for my recusal as the evidence leader dealing with his matter. We haven't seen an application yet. We've seen an affidavit which we're told is going to form the basis of the application. We'll have to consider our position once we have seen a proper application. I have my own views, but I obviously will need to discuss the matter with the full evidence leader team, and to do so once we've seen this application that hasn't yet been furnished. And what we would want from the Commission is to put Mr. Mokgotsi's team on terms to file an application. It ought really to have been filed before today because he was due to appear today. And the issues to which it relates are issues which apparently have been around for a long time. Then we will have to consider our position, and to respond, if there is a response necessary, I may need to seek permission to depose to an affidavit. That will take some time, and I would ask that we set a timetable for resolving this matter within reasonable time limits, and certainly not to delay the return of Mr. Mokgotsi unnecessarily.
And about that timeline, would that be set today still, or will there be engagements between the two sides after today?
I would like it to be set today if it is possible, because I don't want, I want Mr. Mokgotsi to leave today knowing when he has to come back.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Can you please place yourselves on record?
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner, before you and your co-chairs, it's Mr. Makau William Sekhacha. Makau William Sekhacha.
Sekhacha.
Sekhacha, that's correct,
Sekhacha.
Commissioner.
How do you write Sekhacha?
S-E-K-G-A.
K-G-A.
T-J-A.
T-J-A. Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sekhacha.
Afternoon, Chair and co-commissioners. Before you is Advocate Mohamani. Surname is M-O-H-O-M-A-N-E. Thank you, Chair.
And thank you very much. And who's lead?
My apologies.
Who is lead counsel?
Your Worship, lead counsel will be my attorney for the simple reason that my health has taken a bit of a turn. I'm on medication, so it's safer for him to proceed, but we are on the same instruction.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mr. Mokgotsi.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
And good afternoon to both of you too. I don't remember greeting you. Thank you. Yes, Mrs. Khaja.
Thank you, Chair.
You've heard Mr. Shaskalson.
Yes, Chair, we do confirm that there is an intended application
Yes.
for the recusal of Mr. Charles Kassan as lead evidence, as evidence leader in relation to the evidence of Mr. Mokhosi. I'm not sure if the Commission has already received the supplementary affidavit wherein.
Yes, we've received the affidavit, but I don't think we want to go into the content or the detail. Perhaps subject to what you say, the best course to take is for Mr. Mokhosi through you to bring a substantive application for the recusal that has been mentioned by Mr. Shaskalson.
Yes, I do agree, and I've already noted through the terms of reference that the substantive application will need to be brought by our client in relation to this. We are happy, Chair, to adhere to whatever terms which are agreed between the parties in relation to this particular application.
But with regard to the application, I direct that be filed not later than midday tomorrow. The rest about timelines that are to be agreed relates to when next Mr. Mokhosi should appear to testify.
Chair, we are happy to file it by midday tomorrow.
Yes.
Perhaps we can be given a direction as to when will they be expected to respond and us to also further reply to that particular response.
Yes. Mr. Shaskalson, I heard you say you would have to seek permission as someone who was a practitioner. I'm referring to me. I assume that the permission you are referring to is seeking permission from the Bar Council as counsel to depose to an affidavit, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, it's not only the Bar Council, it's also Pabasa, and I need to look and see if I need permission from the Legal Practice Council as well. I genuinely don't know at this stage.
But timelines, as Mr. Sekhacha says?
If I can respond by 6 May, because I'm going to need, the response will not take long, but obtaining permission to depose to the affidavit and submit it may take long.
Yes,
May take longer.
6 May.
So 6 May would, I think, give me enough time. It will be a week after the affidavit comes in.
And Mr. Sekhatja, by when do you suggest to reply?
Commissioner, it will depend on the veracity of the contents of that particular affidavit. But
Length or what?
the length, yes, the length.
And was veracity intended in the sense that the
Yes.
time you require will also depend on the veracity?
Yes,
Okay, all right,
Commissioner,
all right.
also we need to also obtain instructions from our client in relation to that. Perhaps, I would say 3 days after the
3
affidavit
days after
has been
so by
filed.
9 May.
I do not have my calendar with me.
Day is the 9th, Sunday.
The 9th is a Saturday, Chair.
11,
Yes, my council is suggesting the 11th.
then, so as to have full timelines, because now we are left with a date for Mr. Mokhotsi coming back, and that's what you've agreed to engage on. Unless when Mr. Shaskalson suggests a date, Mr. Sekhatja agrees to that date now, we may have to adjourn very briefly for you to engage each other and agree on a date. But of course, there's also the question of when this application is argued. I don't know whether it would be on the morning of the day when Mr. Mokhotsi come back, or whether it would have to be a separate day.
Chair, I don't think that it would be necessary to set aside 2 different days.
Yes,
Our program is tight. We're already losing time because of this. So can I suggest that the hearing of the application and of Mr. Mokhotsi's evidence, whether it's led by me or another evidence leader, takes place on one of the 13th, 14th, or 15th of May? The 13th, 14th, 15th of May.
On any one of those?
On any one of those days that Mr. Mokhotsi's legal team wants to choose.
On your assessment now, would it have taken only 1 day for Mr. Mokhotsi's testimony to be finalized?
Yes, not even a day. I mean,
Not even.
there are limited topics that we were going to traverse with him.
Also,
So it's possible to determine the application
and
to
still hear the testimony.
deal with the remainder of the evidence.
All right. Which one of those days do you pick, Mr. Sekhatja?
Chair,
If any at all, but I hope you will pick one.
the 15th, Chair.
1-5.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you very much to both sides. The substantive application must be filed by close of business tomorrow, 29 April 2026. I have specifically decided to say close of business, no longer midday, because it doesn't serve much purpose to press for midday if the answer is going to be on the 6th of May anyway. So let me start from the top, as artists say. The substantive application must be filed by close of business tomorrow, 29 April 2026. The answering affidavit must be filed by 6 May 2026. The replying affidavit must be filed by 9 May 2026. And, oh, I'm so sorry. 11 May 2026. And the hearing of Mr. Mokhotse's testimony will resume on 15 May 2026. And the application for recusal will be heard on the morning of that day. Mr. Mokhotse, you are directed to be here on that day. That is 15 May 2025. 2026. You should not have corrected me, Mr. Mokhotse. It was then you would simply not have had to come here.
It was on the media that I'm not around, so I must quickly say.
Thank you. Thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you, Chair, and the co-chairs.
You are excused. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Mokhotse, you too, you are excused. Thank you. We are ready when you are, Mr. Chaskalson.
Thank you, Chair. It's probably best to, at this point, to play the video to which the Deputy Chief says that his message responded. Deputy Chief, did you see that video? What was it? What was the scene that was being described, that was being shown in the video?
Correct, as it was Sergeant Nkosi. It's not only a video, as there was two. He sent a picture and a video. I'm not sure if it appears there in the chart, because it was not only that video alone. It was a picture and a video, because they were at the funeral, if I recollect very well, of deputy president by that particular day.
So it was the funeral of the late Deputy President Mabuza.
Correct, SC.
And Sergeant Nkosi was walking with Mr. Mnisi at the funeral.
Yes.
Now, in that context, how are we to understand, I can see, Ukuthi, you have captured Umfowethu, and he wouldn't want you to leave him.
I was referring, as I indicated, to the attention with regard to which I think he has taken the attention of the CFO, and he wouldn't want to, to be far from him.
So the CFO wants to be with Sergeant Nkosi, is what you are saying.
That's correct.
And why the verb capture?
Capture signifies here, let's see the attention here.
Well, in context, that isn't what it means. Look at what you say at the end of the message. Umfowethu is the best person to be with, Ujuda Wetu, who will do great things for us, compared to Baba Waka Ongaseko. So, what I want to put to you is that the capture of the CFO was a process that was designed to put the CFO in a position to do great things for you.
That's not true, CS, because I don't think you should isolate Ujuda Wetu to the entire statement.
Maybe explain Ujuda Wetu, because you say it has significance.
Much as I said, Ujuda Wetu becomes the context where I'm speaking about this thing, with relate to, the gratitude, that I see. It signifies, gratitude, and it's a praise, it's in Dumiso.
Why don't you read that last sentence, substituting for Ujuda Wetu gratitude or praise or whatever you say it means, so that we understand your context?
See, when we write these things, it's not like you are writing a formal or thesis or whatever that need, we are communicating on WhatsApp groups and so forth. It's not a formal way of communications. We have our own way of how we communicate and so forth. So much as I'm saying, if you will read the entire statement bit by bit and say, Ubaba Konga Seko, capture Ujuda Wetu, sometimes we might not be able to bring this into context. Otherwise, you'll understand it the way you want it to look like.
But surely, as you write, you want it to mean something.
Much as I'm explaining, Commissioner, to say here it represented the attention, because I tapped on those videos and pictures, the attention that he has drawn from the CFO.
Can I say, to me, that clip depicts people at a funeral. You say it's a funeral, so I see two people walking together at a funeral. That's what looking at that clip says. Your message says more than just looking at people. You're not commenting about people who are at a funeral together. You say you have captured Umfowethu. So you have to explain that when I look there and see two people at a funeral who may have arrived together, I don't know whether you know that they went there together, that's why you say you've captured him. Maybe they came separately, they happened to arrive together. So the captured means nothing when I look at the video, and you've said you've captured Umfowethu. So you have to explain that you get sent a clip and then it causes you to say you have captured Umfowethu. What are you talking about? You're obviously not talking about just two people just because they are at a funeral together. So do explain. You get a clip that shows you these two people who are at a funeral together. Why do you say that depicts Sergeant Nkosi having captured the CFO?
He has captured the attention of the CFO commissioner, and that's what it precisely means.
What do you mean he's captured his attention? They're at a funeral. We see a clip that just shows them walking together. What is it about that image or that visual that explains he has captured him?
To say the CFO wants to be next to Sergeant Nkosi, that's capturing the attention of someone.
Do you happen to know how it is they are walking next to each other? You have to know. For you to say, I see you have captured him, it means you know something about how they are ending up together there. And that is the part you have to explain. What do you know about how they end up together, walking together there, for you to say you have caught his attention? You don't say to Nkosi, I see the CFO has captured you. You're not saying that. You're not saying, I see that you have become interested in the CFO. You don't say that. You say the CFO has become interested in you and he wouldn't want you to leave him. So you know that it's the CFO, in fact, who is interested in Nkosi and wants Nkosi will want Nkosi to be there forever, never to leave him. You know that. And what you're being asked, or what I'm asking you is, well, what are the background facts that make you make that statement?
The background fact is that he seems very happy next to Sergeant Nkosi. And this is what I've explained, Commissioner.
Okay. And then explain why you say you should gear yourself to do so forever, my brother. Has the CFO told you that he wants Sergeant Nkosi to be there forever?
No, Commissioner.
Where do you get this statement that gear yourself to do so forever, my brother? From two people who are walking next to each other looking happy. Why do you say he will want you to do this forever?
Commissioner, I have my own way of, the tools of analysis, and I wouldn't think alike like any other person.
Yes.
So I'll be able to reduce what I see the way I see it.
Yes.
Yes.
Share that analysis with us, and then, and maybe let me start off by saying you don't pluck analysis out of thin air. There are facts on which you are basing yourself. You say you should gear yourself to do so forever, my brother. And that's an analysis. You've analyzed that you will want him to be there forever. What are the facts on which you base that analysis on?
He seemed happy and at peace with him.
Okay. Why do you say Umfowethu is the best person to be with, who will do great things for us?
When I say great things, it doesn't end there. I also went further and say, it's not like Ubabako Ongaseko.
Yes, I'm coming to that.
Yes.
I'm coming to that part. So I've asked you a specific question. Why do you say the CFO is the best person? One, for what is he the best person? Two, he will do great things for us. What are these great things? And three, who is the us in that statement? So there are three parts to it.
I'm taking this from 2010 because I'm referring to someone who Ubaba Kongaseko, it has got an history, what transpired in the past. And I'm saying he'll be able to nurture him in the right way and so forth.
What will the CFO do for you, Deputy Commissioner Dlamini, because you say he will do great things for us? Forget the CFO because you're the one that's writing. What is it that the CFO will do for you, Dlamini?
Not for me. When
No,
I
you
say
said
for
us.
us, I'm saying for us because I indicated that Sergeant Kosi, it's like a brother to me. I regard him as such. So when we talk, I can't say we'll do great things for you. I'm saying I'm happy for you because there you are having a father who can look after you, nurture you in the right way.
So when
So
you s-
if he does for you, it's like he's doing for me.
So when you say us, you mean Sergeant Nkosi?
Correct, Commissioner.
Okay. What are the great things that you say he will do for Sergeant Nkosi? You must have something in mind. It's not just words.
Great things comes in many forms. It's like, looking after someone's welfare, nurturing him in terms of advices and so forth, taking interest into a particular person's welfare. So that's what I was referring to. You'll see that he'll check him with his wife if he's okay, he's recouping well in the hospital and so forth. And I know that Sergeant Kosi needs that because
Who do
the
you know?
the way he grew up, he definitely needs someone to be able to encourage him.
When you say he will do great things for you, you must know something about the CFO. Who do you know him to have done great things for? You know something about the CFO. So tell us, what do you know about the CFO that he has done great things for somebody that makes you say that he will do great things for Sergeant Nkosi? What do you know about the CFO?
Commissioner, I don't know the CFO much, that he has done something, great things for someone. These are feelings that you have to say, this person will be able to look after this person, nurture him into a particular direction.
But you told us in your evidence that your interaction with the CFO is in meetings of the TMP, of the city. That's your limited interaction with him. How do you, if that's all you know about him,
Yes.
how do you know that he's a person who will do great things, who has a propensity to do great things and will do so for Sergeant Nkosi, for you to make that statement?
Commissioner, perhaps if we can think of great things as material things, then we'll be wrong in that assertion, because great things will come in the welfare of looking after someone that is well mentally and otherwise he get good advices. You don't need to attach material things to great things.
So you know that the CFO will provide mental wellness, to use your word, support to the CFO,
He'll provide
to
guidance.
Sergeant
also.
Nkosi.
He'll provide
Even though you have
guidance.
only met him in formal 2, 3, 4, 5 meetings of the municipality, and you have no personal relationship with him, because that's what you've told us. You have absolutely no personal relationship with him. You don't even talk to him on the phone. You know that he will support Sergeant Nkosi. That you know. It's something so personal that has nothing to do with work. You know that the CFO will do for Sergeant Nkosi, even though you don't know the CFO at all.
You don't need to know someone for years to understand the character or how a person perhaps behaves and so forth. I can meet you twice, then I realize to say, here my daughter or my son will be in good hands to be nurtured.
In this case, you determined that from official meetings of Tshwane Metro, that the CFO will support Sergeant Nkosi, just from your formal meetings.
Correct, Commissioner?
No, that's not true. I want to put it to you. It is not true. You're being dishonest with us about what this message is about. Lastly, from me, in that same message, you say, compared to ubaba wako ongaseko, who and what are you referring to? This ubaba, and what did he do for Sergeant Nkosi that you say now the CFO will do for you?
Much as I indicated, there's history around that, of which I don't think I'll be able to divulge here, how Nkosi was raised at home and so forth.
I just want to know, what did he do for Nkosi that you now say the CFO will do? And this is relevant to our terms, because you followed, let me finish. You followed the evidence, you've listened to the CFO's evidence, it's clear from how you're testifying. You've listened to Sergeant Nkosi's evidence, that is clear from how you are testifying. You then say, you have that background, and you know through engagement with you, your own testimony and their testimony, that we are looking at what appears or appearances of improper and corrupt dealings relating to tender in Tshwane. You know that's the evidence that we are looking at. That's what we've been engaging with you about, and eventually we must make conclusions about. So it's a relevant question to ask you. This Ubaba Wako that you refer to, that you say used to do things for Sergeant Nkosi, which the CFO will now do, because that's what your message is. He will do things for you that your father used to do, who's no longer there. It's a relevant question to ask you, who are you talking about? And two, what did that person do? More importantly, what did that person do for Sergeant Nkosi, which now the CFO will do? This commission has an interest in that. So you can't say, I'm not prepared to discuss it, or I'm uncomfortable to discuss it. You have made a statement. The CFO will take over what Sergeant Nkosi's father used to do. And I'm interested, and it's relevant, not for the sake of it, it's relevant information that must be given to this commission. What is the CFO to do for Sergeant Nkosi that you are referring to in this WhatsApp message?
I indicated, Commissioner, that great things do not refer to material things. It refers to taking care of someone, being concerned about the well-being of a person, and so forth, which the one I'm referring to, there were shortcomings in that regard.
You've had my comment about that evidence. You're not being honest. You're not being open with us. Yes, you won't agree, obviously. But I have to put it to you so that you have no mistake where I stand on this matter. You are not being honest about the content of this WhatsApp, what you were conveying. Thank you.
Can I respond, Commissioner?
Yes, you may.
I am honest. I wrote it because I have a background with Sergeant Nkosi, and I understand what I've written here.
The problem is you don't have a background with the CFO, and yet you're saying things, now you're giving explanations that can only hold if you know the CFO more than what you have told us, which is out of 4 or 5 meetings of the city.
I've noticed the CFO, how he conducts himself, his behavior, how calm he is, and so forth. I was referring on those things.
All right, that's your answer. Thank you.
Deputy Chief, let me remind you about what you said this morning. Remember, in relation to what happened in March 2025, you said the CFO, and this was your testimony this morning, that the CFO wanted Sergeant Nkosi to become an extension of him.
Correct.
And you used an example of a car salesman or an agent, and you said the CFO had appointed Sergeant Nkosi to be his agent.
That's correct,
in relation
Commissioner.
to discussions between you and the CFO.
That's correct.
Is that not what you mean here, that he has now successfully become an extension of the CFO?
That's not true.
Why would that not be true if earlier this morning you said that's what the CFO wanted?
In the context of this message, it's not following the discussion, Commissioner. It was a different message. I was referring to pictures that were sent to me and the videos I've seen. And it made me to recall the previous incident, what transpired back in the 2010 and so forth.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chasko.
Thank you, Chair. Deputy Chief, we have the cell phone records now for you. Have you been through them?
I haven't, SC, just received
Well,
it.
let me give you the context for why we sought these records. And it goes back to your exchanges with Sergeant Nkosi and through Sergeant Nkosi with the CFO who Sergeant Nkosi captured on the 25th of March. And the critical period in this regard is the period between the two messages that you
Please
send.
take us to the page again, Mr. Chasosi.
Sorry, sorry, Chair. That would be helpful. It is page 440. In fact, it starts at 439. So if we go to 439, we see you sending a message to Sergeant Nkosi with a list of 7 companies and the covering message that says, Captain, nai mandate to Victor apiwe yona. Captain, this is the mandate that was given to Victor, and you explained that it was given to Victor by Nico. You recall that?
Correct.
Now, at the time, you then explained the next message, the message at 9:03, Captain, find below our vehicles for land to be given Kumpuetu in order of priority with six company names on it. You said that what had happened is that after Sergeant Nkosi got the message saying that Victor had received a mandate from Nico for 7 companies, he contacted you and said, I want you to find another 7 companies for us to check for compliance. You recall that? And that's why you sent him the list in chat number 1 at page 440. Do you recall your evidence in that regard?
That's correct.
Now, that evidence presupposes that Sergeant Nkosi would have contacted you at some stage between the 2 messages that you sent to him. The message that you sent to him with Victor's mandate from Nico, which was sent at 8:02 p.m., and the message that you sent to him with the new list of 6 companies at 9:03 p.m. You recall?
Correct.
Now, I pointed out to you that there is no WhatsApp communication between you and Sergeant Nkosi between 8:02 p.m. and 9:03 p.m. You accept that?
I'll have to verify that because last time you said these are not calls that incoming, is chat messages, and today it has changed. Some of them are calls and so forth because I saw there's an
sorry,
WhatsApp
sorry,
chat
Deputy
one.
Chief. I have never suggested that there are mystery WhatsApps that are not included on this call. I've also never suggested, I've never withheld from you that the empty message, that the empty bubbles are voice calls. But one thing that has been always clear is that this is the total list of WhatsApps between Sergeant Nkosi and yourself over the period governed by this file 4. So, are you suggesting that there is a WhatsApp somewhere between 802 and 903, and that WhatsApp has mysteriously disappeared? That wasn't your evidence when we traversed this on Friday.
Yes, much as I said, we might have spoken, but I can't recollect whether with a call on the 25th of March when we spoke. Remember, these things happen quite, 2 years back. You need to recollect to say how did you speak to him and so forth.
On Friday, you were fairly clear. When I pointed out to you that there were no WhatsApp calls, then you said, oh no, it must have been a voice call. So I then said, are you saying that you, my exact words were, so you are saying it would have been on a cell phone call that was not a WhatsApp call? And there was no doubt in your answer. You said, yes, we spoke on a cell phone call. And I said, so if we requisition your cell phone records, we will find a call between you and Sergeant Nkosi between 8:02 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. on 25 March. No doubt in your answer, you said that is correct. And then I said, and will you accept that if we do that and we find no call, then this version is false? And you said, yes, I will accept. Well, we've done it and we find no call. So do you still accept that your version is false?
I don't think it was false SC, because much as I'm saying, I have to recollect the events, what transpired, so that perhaps if you can allow me to have my own perhaps record, go and check the communications and so forth on my own, because you just gave me these records, I think now, today, so that I can verify mine.
The critical issue is whether there was a call between the two messages that you send to Sergeant Nkosi. The first one with the mandate to Victor from Nico at 8:02, and the second one with our vehicles for land to be given Kumfowethu in order of priority at 9:03, which you say, despite the wording of the message, actually means the cell phone company, the bidders who have to be checked for compliance by Nico and have been shown by Nico to be compliant.
Correct.
Well, what I want to put to you is that your version in relation to these messages is false, that what you, Sergeant Nkosi, and the CFO were doing was rigging a tender in favor of El Shaddai and Ngapeshea and some others, and that when you speak of capturing the CFO, who will do great things for us, what you're really speaking of is other abuses of public procurement processes that will make you and Sergeant Nkosi very rich. What's your response to that?
I don't agree to that, SC.
Well, I don't propose to take it further than that. If you want to go through these records and at a later stage want to file a supplementary affidavit explaining something that you have discovered in these records that you weren't alive to, you certainly have that right, and we will look at that affidavit and give you the opportunity to address it before the Commission again. Chair, I have no further questions.
Deputy Chief, good afternoon again.
Afternoon, Commissioner.
We are almost there. Deputy Chief, go to file 5, please. So file 5 is the additional documents that you provided to the Commission. Remember when you were last here reading your statement, we asked that you provide additional documents.
Correct.
And they don't form part of your statement, so they're additional in that sense. And you have complied with our request and obviously provided the documents. Now, in relation to the Gubis invoices, there's a few things that you said that we need to clarify. Maybe let's start on page 26. Are you there?
I'm there.
So this is the complaint from Gubis about non-payment of invoices. Do you see the subject line of
Yes,
the email on the 29th of January 2025? And that name that I think it was Chair or Advocate Chaskalson, I can't remember, they asked for Andrew's surname. So at the bottom of that page, it's Andrew Khwadi, K-G-W-A-D-I. Do you see that?
Yes.
So that was the name we were looking for. And these invoices you will see from the email, they relate to the ad hoc services provided at Rooival Water Treatment Plant. Do you see that in the first line of the main email?
Correct.
Yes. Now, let's go to page 27 of the same bundle. So what they have done there is to attach a statement of account, and there are 7 invoices referred to in that statement of account. Do you see that?
If that's correct.
Yes, and just to correct one other thing that you said earlier, payments to Gubis per month before January 2025 was not 2 million, it was actually 397,000 per month. Do you see from invoice 1 to invoice 7?
That's correct.
Yes, the total outstanding, the total balance outstanding was the 2 million, but 2 million was for the 7 months. It was not 2 million per month. And we do know that after January, more than 30 sites were added, and that's what took Gubis' monthly entitlement to just over 14 million. Do you see that?
I see that,
Yes.
Commissioner.
Now, all those invoices that are referred to there, the original invoices are on page 28 to 34 of that bundle. So you'll see that invoice 1 is on page 28, and the invoice number will say Rooival 001 on the top left of the invoice. And if you go to page 29, you'll see that invoice 2 is Rooival 002, and they continue all the way to invoice 7, which is on page 34. Do you see that?
And that's correct, Commissioner.
But what is curious about all these invoices is that where you are supposed to insert the purchase order number, it's not there. So if you go back to page 28 or any of the invoices really, on the right side of the invoice, you will see that there's the vendor number, there's the CSD number, there's the period when the services were rendered, and there's the VAT number. Just below the VAT number, there's a purchase order number missing. Do you see that?
That's correct.
And this is the real reason why these invoices could not be paid, correct?
Correct.
Because if you go to page 24 of the same bundle, you see that a purchase order number is retrospectively created. Are you on page 24?
Page 24, yes.
On the 6th of March 2025, you see that a purchase order 4501267280 was created on the 6th of March 2025. Do you see that?
Correct.
And the reason why invoice 1 could not be paid is because the purchase order that was retrospectively created on the 6th of March 2025 is created in respect of invoice 2 to 7. Do you see that?
2 to 7. Yes.
Yeah, and doesn't include invoice 1. Do you see that?
Correct.
And that explains why invoices 2 to 7 were then paid, and there was no issue with those, because once the purchase order was irregularly created after the event, those invoices could be paid. Do you see that?
I see that.
But for invoice 1, there was a problem because it was for the previous year. So if you go back to page 28, the invoice covered the date 27 May 2024 to 27 June 2024. Do you see that? That was the previous financial year. And this explains why this invoice could not be paid and why you had to involve Sergeant Nkosi. In fact, if you go to file 3 on page 144, you will see that that is the invoice that you sent to Sergeant Nkosi to say, this one is for the previous financial year. We will engage later Nomfowethu on how to address it in order to avoid ex post facto.
That's correct.
So that is really the sequence that in relation to the 2025 invoices, although they were eventually paid, there was an irregular process because the purchase orders were created many months after the event. And in fact, if you want to see how those invoices were fixed, if you go to page 17 of the same bundle, bundle 5, from page 17 to 24, you will see that after the purchase order is created, the purchase order number is handwritten in all these invoices. So if you look at the top of page 17 all the way to 23, you see that that 450126780 purchase order is inserted in manuscript. Do you see that?
That's correct.
So that's how this whole irregular thing was corrected. But for the 2024 invoice, it could not be corrected because the city's processes don't allow you to do that. That's why you needed this ex post facto arrangement.
That's correct, Commissioner.
So I have the right order and the right sequence.
You are correct.
All right, I just needed to clarify that. Thank you, Mr. Scalzo.
Thank you, Chair. I have no questions flowing from those questions.
Do we resume at 9:30 tomorrow?
Unfortunately not, Chair. Mr. Karim was due to appear tomorrow. We have received a medical certificate indicating that he's confined to bed. We were then hoping to proceed with Mr. Mokgotsi tomorrow, but he's de facto secured a postponement by applying for my recusal, so we no longer have a witness for tomorrow. So we will have to resume on Thursday.
Deputy Chief, there was the issue of the documents, or rather phone records. You said you wanted to have a look at them because they had been given to you today. Will you be wanting to file a supplementary affidavit relating to that issue?
Yes, I will do so, Commissioner.
You are directed to file that supplementary affidavit not later than 4 May 2026.
That's correct.
And you are excused. We will resume on Thursday, 30 April 2026 at 9:30. Let's adjourn.
The flight, so that they will also strengthen their borders. That's my 2 cents. Thanks, Sir Report. Because we don't have to pay for other people while we are going hungry. Thank you.
Well, I think it'll be an interesting discussion around just home affairs and border management, exactly how they do it in terms of their broader collaboration between different countries and borders, of course. Right, 4:30. Here's the news headlines with Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, the temporary reduction in the fuel levy of 3 rand a litre is to be extended until the 2nd of June. South Africa's tourism sector is showing strong signs of resilience, with new data showing an increase in accommodation revenue for February, and the election of the Pan-African Parliament leadership will take place on Thursday. I'm on Delambana for SAFM News Headlines at 5:30. More news at 5 with Greg Rose.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Very heavy leaving Pretoria. Paul Kruger near the Capital Park. Looks like traffic light issues there on Paul Kruger at Tro. So heading out of the CBD, going towards the north, very heavy. The bike one in Joburg still jammed up from Melrose through Woodmead. Crash on the N3 South near Linksfield, pushing a queue all the way back through to Linbro Park, and looking particularly heavy on that run through towards the Edenvale area today. Durban N2 South, fairly sluggish rather than heavy between Inanda Road and Spaghetti Junction. The M4 over Blue Lagoon through to Virginia Airport's heavy, and Inanda Road out through Seacow Lake through Springfield out towards the N2. If you're trying to get to Newlands area, that looking quite slow as well. Cliffdale Key Ridge checking fine, no problems there. Cape Town, an outburst or outbreak, if you like, of a protest action on Baden Powell Drive, the bottom of Khayelitsha between Muway and Walter Sisulu. Some burning tyres reported, with a big slowdown of traffic, particularly if you're on that section going towards the N2 highway, and just generally busy coming out of Cape Town on the N2 from the city centre through Hospital Bend as far as Bunga Avenue out at Langa. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkgapele.
Right, Tumi, you're going to start with rugby.
Yes, French rugby authorities have doubled down on their opposition to World Rugby's 20-minute red card trial, warning that it poses a major threat to player welfare. The French Rugby Federation and Ligue Nationale de Rugby issued a joint statement rejecting the idea of temporary expulsions, arguing that it could encourage dangerous play. Now, the trial, introduced in elite competitions last year, allows a sent-off player to be replaced after 20 minutes, and French officials insist that permanent red cards do not ruin contests, citing data showing only 60% of teams reduced to 14 players lose. In terms of football, Kaizer Chiefs could be without several key players for next week's Betway Premiership showdown against Mamelodi Sundowns. Lebogang Mabue, Mfundo Vilakazi, Sipesihle Ndlovu, Nkosi Ngobo and Flavio da Silva are all one booking away from suspension, with Chiefs set to face Siwelele in Bloemfontein tomorrow before the Sundowns clash at Loftus Versfeld on the 6th of May. Chiefs are chasing a top 3 finish and a CAF Confederation Cup qualification, while Sundowns remain on course for a league and cup double. And in terms of athletics, Zambian Olympic 400-meter bronze medalist Muzala Samukanya is relishing a career milestone as he makes his South African debut at the Akani Simbini Classics in Tshwane today. The Continental Tour Silver Challenger event runs from 4:45 to 6 p.m. at Pearlditch Stadium, and Samukanga arrives in fine form after clocking 44.55 seconds at the Kipkeino Classic in Nairobi, finishing just behind South Africa's Zagiti Nene. Now, the pair renew their rivalry in the 300-meter, a new distance for Samukanya, who will also face Lath Pillay and Nigeria's Udima Okon and other international stars. In terms of rowing, SASCOC First Vice President Lwandile Semelane has welcomed Rowing South Africa's new sustainability fund aimed at raising 50 million rand to support athletes competing internationally. The initiative, unveiled earlier this month, aligns with SASCOC's strategic pillar of governance and sustainability. Semelane told SABC Sport the project should be celebrated as an innovative way to maximize resources for athletes while acknowledging the wider funding environment in South African sport needs urgent attention. And she stressed that government support will never be enough on its own, urging federations to explore creative solutions to secure long-term stability. I'll have more on other sports in the next hour.
Okay, good. Listen, I want to talk to you about that record-breaking marathon, but we can talk about it in the next hour, about the significance of that.
The London Marathon.
Yeah, in the 2 hours.
And I mean, a great record over there. I think for me, I'm also just interested. I like the fact that, Africans obviously doing well on the international stage, but also on my timeline, I saw more and more South Africans running the London Marathon.
Okay, great. And doing well?
Doing well for themselves.
As far as Kenyans go, they're born for that type of thing,
course,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
When you listen to me, I feel important. When you hug me, I feel safe. When you talk with me, I learn.
Your love and attention helps your child grow strong and confident. Listen, comfort, and connect with him, because every child deserves to feel seen, heard, and loved.
Visit holdmyhand.org.za.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
So there's results from the Anglo-American Q1. Makwe Masilela's got all those numbers, Makwe.
Yes, Ashraf, that is their production report. The guys continue to execute portfolio optimization, with the sale of the steel-making coal expected to be agreed upon in Q2. DPS sales still ongoing as they're assessing the impact from challenging diamond market, and their measure with tech expected to close anytime between September 2026 and March 2027, with antitrust approval from China being the final outstanding approval needed. Copper production up 1% and ore production down 2%, impacted by Kumba, and manganese production up 118%. Rough diamonds, Ashraf, are up 17%. And with central banks meetings for every G7 country this week, ours, remember, is on the 28th of May, alongside 44% of the S&P 500 reporting. Locally, it's quiet when it comes to company reports, including the 5 of the Magnificent 7 companies. It is shaping up, Ashraf, to be a blockbuster week, even though locally we've got a 3 days trading week. That's even before factoring in ongoing Middle East conflict news flow. Indications of concern are the prospect of tighter monetary policy in coming months that will likely be negative when it comes to government debt. Ashraf, the global economy is weathering yet another inflationary shock, and this time it's from the blockage of the Strait of Hormuz. But structural labor market conditions suggest that the damage will probably be limited, because we thought accelerating wage growth, higher inflation will simply erode real wages, forcing households to cut discretionary spending and dampening demand, and that itself is a self-correcting dynamic that limits further price acceleration. And the US dollar is rising alongside global bond yields, hence the rand is under pressure. And also falling commodity prices exacerbated the rand situation, and our 3 rand per litre fuel tax cut has been extended up until the 2nd of June. And when it comes to June, it will be halved. It will be 1 rand 50 per litre, and the yellow metal sank to a 3-week low, and that's at the back of a firmer dollar and traders eyeing a crash of interest rate decision. Gold is down 2.5% at 4,567. Platinum down 1.7% at 1,950. Oil prices rising, extending the previous session's gains as efforts to end the Iran war appeared to have stalled. And apparently United Arab Emirates, which is the 3rd largest OPEC producer, that's after Saudi Arabia and Iraq, is leaving the organization as from this Friday. And that is to pursue new strategy. We see Brent crude is up 3.5% at $111. Global stocks anxious for Trump's response to that Iran's latest proposal, trading in the red with the JSE down 1.6%. The rand is down 0.2% against the dollar, 16.56, 22.37 against the pound, and 19.39 against the euro.
Okay, got all of that. So thanks for that, Marco. It's been a while since we last chatted. We'll do it again tomorrow. An hour of the markets coming up in detail, including that UAE OPEC exit 6 to 7. Yeah, on the on SAFM's market update. Don't miss that.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
Okay, let's talk about the ANC SACP from a COSATU perspective. We'll do that in just a moment. In the meantime, let's get to some of your further comments that we have, right? And they are, Ashraf, why should South Africa carry the burden of illegal foreigners with deportation? It's an issue. I tell you what, we need to find the whole explainer on that. You know, who carries the burden? What about the country of origin when, in this case, citizens get deported, back to their home countries? But on the other hand, to avoid that cost, as some have suggested, said don't deport others to pay for it. That may pose even bigger problems.
Yeah, Ashraf, in terms of immigration on our border post, it's just that our government, they don't want to act. I think if they can fire those bodies who take bribes there. I remember on the first lockdown, when I went to Lesotho, the police guy, he asked me 100 rand to make a plan for me to jump to that side the 99th. So you can see that the police are also taking a bribe. They must fire them, not arrest them. They must just fire. Thank you. This is anonymous from Just
fire. Got that. By the way, what about COSATU SACP ANC? Meaning COSATU, we'll talk to them just now. Effectively, they're suggesting to both parties that form part of the tripartite alliance to say, come on, work together. Basically, what's that word? Like make a plan, right? What do you think of that? Reaction, by the way, on the conversation with the Minister of Basic Education, if you have, regarding that procurement issue, which is now put to that procurement committee, the Treasury, to look into, because it's out of her domain, accepting to make the recommendation, to look into it.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I just want to share my thoughts with regards to the conversation you had a few minutes ago with the Minister of Basic Education, Sibiwe Khwarube. I must say, the reality is that the person who's actually in charge of the procurement processes in the Department of Basic Education is the one that's supposed to be in trouble, because they're doing whatever they're doing intentionally and they're benefiting from whatever they're doing, right? And Ashraf, this Sibiwe Khwarube, she's very impressive, eh? Every time she speaks to the media, engages with the media, she wants to show transparency. I mean, she could literally sell you whatever she could sell you and you would buy it. Eh? But this is my honest opinion. Daniel here in Bryanston.
Thank you, Daniel. I don't know about whether she could sell anything to me, but I get the point. I mean, she was emphatic today, as always, to say that there's no way I would condone any forms of, let's call it, corruption. And I'm just paraphrasing, because, that's what I have fought against all this time. There's no way I will tolerate that. It cannot be on my watch. But my processes are that I'm not part of the tendering committee, not at all. But as the minister, I'm not the financial officer, but it is a complaint. It can't be ignored. Then I must submit a complaint to investigate it, which she's now done, and then we'll take it from there. So naturally, she can't pass judgment. That makes sense to me. She does come across as pretty transparent, and we want more of the same, don't you think?
Ashraf Garda is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio. You're listening to the National Pulse.
Well, it's going to be a significant local government election. Also significant is not just because how the ANC performed in that previous election and the question marks against them by many people that make up the National Pulse community, but also the fact that this time around they're going to go it alone without the SACP. And what does that mean then for that tripartite alliance in terms of getting votes, right? So it is in that context that COSATU, they're calling for the toning down of hostilities between their alliance partners, the ANC and the SACP. I wonder what that really means, toning down. Matthew Parks with me, COSATU's parliamentary coordinator. Matthew, appreciate you joining us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us.
All right, let me not assume anything. Give me an example when you say toning down. What does that mean?
Well, we think this the statements by different alliance partners, calling a press conference by different alliance partners about each other doesn't help. Yes, there are issues in the alliance. Each alliance partner's got, grievances it wants to see resolved. But we think the way to do that is not to have press conferences where we talk about each other or not to throw adjectives or insults at each other. We feel that it's going to potentially make matters worse, that it won't strengthen the alliance, and in all likelihood it might even weaken and potentially threaten the survival of the alliance. For us, the alliance is a critical political vehicle. It is the best opportunity for workers, for working class communities to advance their interests. It has stood the test of time, leading the liberation struggle, defeating the party regime, building a constitutional democracy and setting us upon a transformation journey as a country. And we think it has a critical role to play, given how many dire socioeconomic challenges we face as a nation. But when we see alliance partners who are meant to work together, having press conferences to critique each other, we don't think that helps. Our mandate from our Central Committee last year as COSATU was to engage each alliance partner to call, to press for an alliance political council to resolve alliance partners' grievances and concerns and frustrations. We don't think calling press conferences is the way to do that. So our appeal really is before things get out of control, because it's very easy in a family fight, which are often the most ugly and painful fights, for things to spiral out of control, for tit for tat to develop. And hence our plea as COSATU, reluctantly, is for alliance partners to desist from any of the further action or statements which might exacerbate matters, and to really let us find time urgently to convene an alliance political council to resolve each alliance partner's issues and to see how can we unify and strengthen the alliance. Especially, as you said, we're going to the most contested local elections in a matter of months at the end of this year. And the alliance needs to be coherent. It needs to send a clear message to its supporters, to its voters. If we're seen to be at odds in sixes and sevens with each other, it will be very difficult to inspire confidence amongst society that we...
Yeah, you still there, Matthew? We may just have lost Matthew Parks just for a moment, and let's see if we can get him back on the line, because I heard what he said, but how much power does he actually have on that issue? Let's play some further voice notes on that.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I just want to share my thoughts with regards to the conversation you had a few minutes ago.
Okay, we've done that already. My apology for that. We do have now Matthew Parks back on the line. Matthew, so we just lost you for a second, right? But I've heard what you've said. But here's the important part. You're telling us this. Do I take it that the same conversation you've actually had as COSATU with SACP and the ANC? And if so, what have they said?
We've had this discussion before, and I think we've been confident that each alliance partner, be the ANC, be the SACP, ourselves and SANCO, have all said we are committed to the alliance without doubt, that we want to strengthen the alliance, we want to reconfigure the alliance. So I think it's then for us to say, how do we do that? And how do we really make sure that when we head towards the local elections, we really have a unified alliance program of action?
Yeah, but I mean, that wish list is, easier said than done, right? I mean, a wish list is fine, right? clearly there's a problem here, and it's going to take more than just saying, come on, let's work something out together, without knowing what you're going to have to work out, keeping in mind that for many people the fault lines came about during that last election and the ANC's position with their GNU partners. I mean, how do you change that?
No, there is many issues, long-standing issues. Some issues about the marginalization of the lines when it comes to giving political policy direction to government, issues of budgets, etc. But our point is that you're not going to address those issues if you don't convene an alliance political council. If you don't sit around the same table and engage with each other and table the issues, we're not going to find solutions. And we also don't think calling press conferences to critique each other contributes to that solution. In fact, we fear it might make matters worse because you'll find attitudes will harden, feelings will be bruised, and you might just kind of provoke a tit for tat. So hence our immediate call is for ending of statements and action which might weaken the lines. And secondly, that we must have an alliance political council, the most senior leadership of each alliance partner, and we must table what are, for us, the issues, the solutions to resolving it. We don't have all the answers as COSATU ourselves. We do have some ideas, but what we do know, based on the trade union movement, is that if you don't sit on the same table with those you want to engage and find solutions, then you won't find the solutions. Solutions come from engagement.
So let's end with this. I mean, there seems to be a reluctance to sit on the same table at the moment anyway. So going into that election coming up in a few months' time, what do you think is likely to happen with regard to the ANC, SACP specifically?
That's what we say. If you continue not to meet as an alliance, if you continue not to speak with one voice and have one program of action, we'll further weaken the alliance. We're also particularly fearful as COSATU that COSATU, as a child, so to speak, of the alliance partners, may risk being divided, that workers may be confused, our members will not know what is the line of march come the local elections. And when we have the ANC as a leader of the liberation movement, who has always contested elections on our behalf, in the last elections getting 40%, and hence the GNU and other coalitions across the country, we feel this is going to worsen. We've seen a trend since '96, where coming to election, the ANC sheds to a splinter group, to be it a UDM, a COPE, a EFF, or MKP, or independents at a local level. We're not saying this is the same thing because the party has said it's committed to the line.
Okay. And just a quick one-liner before I let you go. I mean, do I take it at this point in time that COSATU, in its support of the ANC in that tripartite alliance, that's not negotiable? That's not up for debate right now, is it?
No, we support both alliance partners. We're not wanting to choose between either one. We have a standing resolution to support the ANC, the ballot box. That gets reviewed every Congress. Our next Congress is in September this year, where it would be discussed and reviewed as it has been in every Congress.
All right.
But I think for us, for now, is to appeal for calm and engagement to resolve these issues.
All right, let's leave it at that. Matthew Parks, COSATU's parliamentary coordinator, essentially reaching out to both the SACP as well as the ANC to say, find a way to come together, to work together ahead of that election, as you've always done over the years, 3 decades of democracy and more. This is the National Pulse.
Moro, Moni, Dumela, Bonjour, Habari. You arrived in South Africa to build something better. New place, new challenges, new responsibilities. Now you can with the Mama Money bank account. Pay your rent, take care of your daily needs, build your life, and when your family needs you, you don't wait. You send money home, quickly, securely, from wherever you are. Because this is more than money, it's progress. Buy your Mama Money card today at Pick n Pay or a Mama Money agent. Mama Money, now you can.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
Right, let's get your thoughts. So there's you can talk about the COSATU story. So here's the thing. Is there any chance that the ANC and the SACP will turn things around and they'll agree to contest the election as one, as they've been doing by and large ever since we know it in democratic South Africa? Or would they contest separately but have this collaboration agreement as they've always done after the election, almost like a coalition between them, which means you vote for one or the other. In fact, you still vote for that same organization. Or do you think they will be poles apart as per the conversations we're hearing right now? Mandla in Durban. Hi, Mandla.
Hello, how are you, Ashraf?
I'm good indeed. Go for it. What's your point?
Yeah, my thought about this alliance. Listen, Ashraf, I'm a member of a union that's affiliated to COSATU. This, every time when it's about a time to vote, they will always ask us to vote for the ruling party. But us as employees, as workers who are under the unions that are under umbrella COSATU, we are not benefiting anything in this, Ashraf. All I say is that this thing is benefiting certain individuals, like those that are up top there, like the guy that we just spoke to, the parliamentary leader of COSATU. It only benefits them. As employees down on the bottom, it doesn't benefit us.
Okay, you're saying no benefit to you at all. Thank you for that, Mandla in Durban. Churchill in Tata. Hi, Churchill.
Hello, Ashraf.
Hi, how's it, man?
Ashraf, I'm fine and fine, brother.
Good.
I think there's one thing that we must note here. Let's look at the behavior of the ANC when it comes to these relationships in the alliance. They tend to be arrogant. They bully others in the alliance. The SACP has been very loud. They have tried their level best, to deal with issues within the alliance when they meet. But unfortunately, they've never been successful. It has become worse now during the formation of the GNU. That's the ANC. Once elections are over, they bully others and they become arrogant. I'll cite another recent example. Look at what is happening in the GNU. They have forgotten that they depended on the votes of the DA in actually to elect the president of the ANC. Now, that's the issue with the ANC.
Yeah, but the only reason they're depending on that is because 50% plus one of the country didn't vote for the ANC. If they had, then we wouldn't be having this conversation about the GNU.
Absolutely. But unfortunately, after the alliance, they forget that. Their leaders become arrogant. That's the problem with the ANC. Hence, now the SACP has decided to march their own route and, contest elections on their own. And we've been saying that instead of making this hullabaloo, they must actually do that as workers, for instance. And I think the gentleman that was there, he was speaking personally because they haven't held the Congress of the Alliance. Of course, to actually get a mandate from workers. What is it that workers want? Because they need to convene that Congress in order to understand what is it that workers want when going to these elections.
Yeah, well, as you said, they still need a mandate at the moment. They're going to tell them to vote for either or. Interesting indeed. Churchill, thanks for that that call, right? Muzibekaya in East London. Hello, how are you?
Afrash, how are you?
Yeah, good talking to you. Hey?
You call Afrash now.
Hey, I don't even fix it up. It doesn't matter because, listen, sometimes I get names wrong. So you know what? We've got about 5 iterations. Ashraf, Afsras. And I get people who WhatsApp me and they tease me, but it's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah. Look, my man, I have a proposal for you guys, to you and your producers.
Yeah.
Or production team. When you do interviews on issues like PFMA, please go through those documents before interviews, because the Minister of Basic Education should not have gotten scot-free the way she did in that interview. I'm saying this because her decision to approach National Treasury on the issue is not what the PFMA gives as her responsibility. Her primary responsibility is to ensure that if she has questions about procurement in line with her oversight is broader than a. So she should have spoken to the DG, the CFO, and the head of SEM to find out what happened, because those are the people that are employed to manage procurement in that department. So the finance minister is actually not even a primary action for her to take. So when she doesn't find joy from what her officials are saying, that's when the matter should be investigated.
Yeah, I hear you. Look, let me explain to you one thing that I think is important, right? I think there are different programs, and the nature of this type of show, the Drive Time show, is very much in the moment, news as and when it happens. So sometimes you get shows where you can even plan a day or two in advance. and the nature of this show, because we want to deal with issues as and when it happens, sometimes, yes, the compromise we make is like, do we either speak to the guest in a day's time when we have enough research, or in fact, do we speak to the guest in the moment because we actually want to get the decision makers' views right away? For example, right now you may have seen there's a news coming out, the United Arab Emirates have now withdrawn from OPEC. It's a significant decision, right? So if we get someone, I'm not saying we will, if we get someone to talk about it right now, do we say, hold it, we need an hour or two of research, which we'll never find that time? So the point is, your point is valid as well, but sometimes we do go for trying to get the issue first, which means there will never be enough time to go through every single point that's made as a reference point for the conversation. So there's some degrees of compromise, but our plan always is to try and deliver the news as quickly as is possible when it happens. If that makes any sense to you, yeah. Which is different from a profile, you know.
You have is you've got a newsroom, SABC newsroom, that you can get technical expertise or journalistic expertise to engage on these issues and to even help prepare interviews like this one. Even on the example that you're making on OPEC, you've got resources that are there.
All right, let me say this much. It's a lot more complicated than that, because even the newsrooms, they are all understaffed, doing their own thing, and there's no way we can direct them. It's a lot more complicated than me giving you like a 30-second answer, if you get my point. All right, Mbuzi Wakaya, thank you for that. Stephen, let's get to your thoughts quickly before we get to the news. Stephen, hi.
How are you, sir?
I'm good indeed. Go for it. What's your point?
Yeah. Let me comment on this COSATU and COSATU and SAB. You know, COSATU is the reason why ANC is where it is now. And they come and blame ANC. I don't know what they want the ANC to do, because for them to be useless as they are, to be so incompetent, the workers thought that they're punishing them by punishing ANC. That's why ANC got below 50%. It's because of them and SSCP. They come and say, the ANC, who are they? Because they are members, they are partners. They should have worked very hard on the ground to convince people to vote for the ANC, but they didn't, they failed. And they come and say, ANC this, ANC that. What should ANC have done? Really, nothing. Because they are useless. They were the people who should have gone there on the ground, speak to the people, but because they disappointed people, because of being corrupt, because being incompetent, people punish them and punish ANC.
All right. So you're saying, in fact, it's COSATU and SACP that's actually undermined the ANC itself. Interesting. I expect others to react to that. From the ANC, from COSATU, from the SACP. Let's hear your thoughts as we talk about that debate. The ANC, SACP, COSATU alliance. Who's to blame when they're not winning? Let's get the news. It's 5 o'clock. Here's Greg.
Thank you, Ashraf. Government extends fuel levy reduction and election of new Pan-African Parliament leadership. Good day to you. Government's officially extended the temporary reduction of the fuel levy to shield South Africans from another massive price hike expected next month. In a joint move, the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Mineral and Petroleum Resources have confirmed the relief measures first introduced in April will now continue. The general fuel levy was slashed by 3 rand a litre and will remain suspended until the 2nd of June. Sepo Mungwai reports.
Due to the massive spike in global prices, the National Treasury has announced that diesel will attract no fuel levy at all during this period. Government estimate that the fiscus will lose approximately 17 billion rand in revenue. The relief is expected to be phased out starting in early June. Sepo Mungwai, SABC News, Johannesburg.
South Africa's tourism sector is showing signs of resilience, with new figures showing an increase in accommodation revenue for February. The latest figures from Stats South Africa show that total income for tourist accommodation saw a 7% jump compared to the same period last year. Notando Makutulela has the story.
On a year-on-year basis, income from accommodation increased by 8.9% in February. The increase is from stay unit nights sold. In the 3 months ended February 2026, income from accommodation increased by 5.1%. The positive contributors to this increase were guest houses, guest farms, and other accommodation. Nothando Makotulela in Johannesburg.
The Border Management Authorities announced the appointment of 5 construction consortiums to redevelop 6 key ports of entry across South Africa. The Home Affairs Minister, Leon Schreiber.
This truly is a groundbreaking moment for South Africa. This project, with an estimated 12.5 billion rand, constitutes the single biggest investment ever made by the South African government in upgrading our country's border management and immigration system. The 6 ports of entry that will be rebuilt are Lubombo, Beitbridge, Oshoek, Kopfontein, Maseru Bridge and Vicksburg. These 6 ports sit at the center of regional trade and movement.
The Minister of Basic Education has written to the Finance Minister to request that National Treasury probe possible irregularities in the textbook procurement process for foundation phase. This follows reports that the publishing company Lighthouse Publishers was awarded a tender to provide textbooks for grades 1 to 3. It's alleged the company was only registered 3 days after the contract specifications were issued. The minister's spokesperson, Lukhanya Vanka.
The Minister of Basic Education, Ms. Siviwe Gwarube, has noted with serious concern reports containing allegations of procurement irregularities in the textbook procurement process. At stake is the delivery of quality education materials to over 13.7 million learners across South Africa. Any compromise in the integrity of the textbook procurement process directly threatens the ability of the education system to function effectively and undermines the constitutional right of every child to have access to basic education.
The election of the Pan-African Parliament leadership will take place on Thursday. The Parliament's convening an extraordinary session of its 7th legislature from today until Thursday at its headquarters in Midrand, north of Johannesburg. Mutlale Pele has the details.
The new members took their seats today, and their next order of business was the discussion on the election of the Bureau. This was done behind closed doors. The last election was chaotic, and regions argued about the rotation system aimed at ensuring that all regions get the opportunity to lead. The regional caucus has already started to lobby support for their candidates. Khanyisile Lynchfield of the MKP was sworn in as new member of the PAP, replacing Duduzile Zuma Sambundla, who ceased to be a member after she resigned from the South African National Assembly. Addressing the PAP, the African Union Commission chairperson Mahmoud Ali Youssefu called on members to work together in the interest of Africa.
Top story: government's officially extended the temporary reduction of the fuel levy to shield South Africans from another massive price hike expected next month. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khus.
In sports this hour, Simbini opens season with a sub-10 seconds at Simbini Classic. French rugby rejects 20-minute red card trial, and Fulvard highlights positives from India series ahead of World Cup. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Joburg's N3 remains under pressure. The earlier crash going into Edenvale has been cleared, but it's been replaced by a broken down bus. N3 south at London, so very heavy coming off Buccleuch. The bike one north from Melrose up through Sandton towards Woodmead is heavy, and it looks like traffic light issues 14th Avenue at the N1. That means a queue coming down the highway from Bayers Nordia down to that 14th Avenue off-ramp. A lot of traffic as well around Galuli's N12 and R24 routes in from the east side are busy, joining an N3 south towards the cement factory, which is very slow going. Durban today, the M4, this is the Route First Highway section heading north from Durban, quite slow. Blue Lagoon up to Virginia Airport. Alpine Road really heavy today from Umgeni Road, moving down through Springfield towards Felix Club Media. There's a really big delay there, and the Southern Freeway has a crash. This is the M4 southbound just before Blamey Jacobs exit, so quite a backlog coming from the Congella side. Top story in Cape Town today is the protesting on Baden Powell Drive, burning tyres between Meway and Walter Sisulu Road at the bottom of Khayelitsha. Expect some delays and disruption around that particular scene. And if you're heading away from Muizenberg, there's quite a big backlog anyway on Baden Powell through to Strandfontein Road. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, we'll have an update on the Madlanga Commission coming up around 5:45 as we do every day, so look out for that, right? The other issue that has definitely dominated conversations in the last couple of days has been this issue of the government's draft AI policy lessons and the way forward that was withdrawn after it found that whoever gave input into it, they were able to draw on sources that were in fact fictitious sources, many of them AI, artificial intelligence generated sources that were going to comment or pass commentary on a draft AI policy. Now the Minister, Solly Malatsi, has actually come forward and apologized for it, to say that cannot happen. So that's the one thing. But let's look at the lessons learned from this and then understand what should that policy be anyway. Professor Rendani Mbuba is the AI expert and associate professor at the Wits University School of Statistics and Actuarial Science. Prof. Mbuba, appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much, and glad to be here, Ashraf.
Thank you. Let's break it into two, right? We'll talk about what ought to be in that draft AI policy if you were asked to give input to it. But firstly, your thoughts in terms of how we got into a situation where effectively an AI-generated response was given to create AI policy. What's your thoughts on that?
Look, I think what is one of the reasons why we could end up where we are today is because of one thing. And the main thing here deals with state capacity in different organs of state. In this case, we're talking about state capacity in developing policy in a fairly technical and highly moving subject. In this case, then you find that, maybe the teams that were set out to give this work were perhaps, overwhelmed by the context and the evolving technical work that is going into regulating AI, which then led them to, using some of these tools. And usually when you end up with a result like what we did, is when you do not have a full appreciation of the tool itself, in the sense that, how it's generating this text and the risks that may come up, that may come to it.
So from your
it's likely capacity constraints.
So from your sense, then, what actually happened, and what are the implications there of that?
Yeah, so typically what would happen in this context is, we cannot shy away from the fact that in many contexts, AI and particularly large language models in terms of generating text is being used. We now know that quite a lot of text that is on the internet today is increasingly, AI generated. So in this case, you would have found that, once after sort of giving some context, and this is how to operate, conditional on what you're doing, they're able to generate a text that is very likely to be there. So typically what that means is that AI learns patterns between words. And then, for example, if you are then referencing, a philosophy journal, like what was happening here, it would make up a reference that looked like it would exist and would apply to this context. But however, does not necessarily exist, but to the AI itself, that has very high chances to exist. So that's where, that nuance in terms of getting the expertise to understand the limitations of potentially where, these tools could run foul, as well as, what to sort of check for in terms of when you're sort of producing, a document of this importance.
So in this case, thanks to the News 24 investigative journalism team that actually picked it up, right? And of course now the apology from the minister. What do you make of that? The investigation into a suspicion and then the apology.
Yeah, so look, ordinarily, an investigation, which is in some ways could be contextualized as an editorial issue onto the policy itself, should have been found within the department before, the policy went to cabinet and so on and so on. So typically what you want to have, and typically we have this in a corporate setting, where you'd have, multiple lines of defense, if you will, where you have, a second line of review, multiple lines of review. So where you catch some of these things, and perhaps, visit some of the sources that the document suggests to exist. And this is, fundamentally what the News 24 team, did, and found them not to exist.
But having said that, and you're right, the big lessons to learn from this one is like exactly that point. There's been insufficient gatekeepers on a very important issue, and now more so with regard to artificial intelligence, where these type of documents, policy documents, could never have been recreated the way they are doing now at the pace that they're being doing now. So if we don't have further governance, we have a huge problem. This could be a huge test case for a whole range of other things, including medical, for example.
Yes, we've seen. This is not the first high-profile case of something like this happening. Almost last year we had a case of Deloitte, in Australia, with a very important report that was, said to be AI generated, and in terms of that corporate transaction, money was refunded. So you're seeing it quite a lot. In our context, in the university context, we're seeing a lot of, reports written by students and others using AI. But then again, some of those things we cannot avoid, but it's more around, the guardrails under which it's used, and also understanding the limitations under which it's used. AI is here to make our lives easier, to help us, process large amounts of information. But however, we should also know how it operates in terms of generating those texts, and therefore, the resultant limitations.
Yeah. Let's then talk about what the policy ought to be. That means, yes, you could be one of 1,000 people that are canvassed. What should that policy be? Because now we're starting from scratch again, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think it's an AI policy in this day and age is a very important document strategically for a country. It sort of says to the outside world and the inside world that, this is where we want to place ourselves in the AI economy. The AI economy typically is probably segmented into about three things, which talks about the data, it talks about the infrastructure, and it talks about the algorithms. And then it's really talk about, where is the South African contribution to these different parts? And where do we strategically place ourselves globally, such that we attract global investments, such that we build, the necessary skills and competencies, such that we're able to thrive in this economy. So I think what the policy should really be, it should really set up that framework that both, thrusts us into this, into working with AI as a nation, including our students, including our corporates, while also protecting us in some way, in the sense that, some of the harms that AI could have, but however, also have a full appreciation. And I think this case is really what is demonstrated here, that there's some things that we don't know about this technology, and therefore we either get the necessary advice, or we also, look at the emerging evidence as it comes up, because we don't want to, constrain the development of this technology because our rules are too rigid.
And interesting, you talk about rigidity, but there also needs to be huge responsibility in terms of verifying everything, because I see, for example, it's one of the complaints I've made as well, looking at artificial intelligence driven issues in the newsrooms, right, being posted on Twitter, and then on Instagram and TikTok, and you have no idea whether they are true or not. So one of the policies, ought to be that anything artificially intelligence generated needs to be said as that. There needs to be that disclaimer, don't you think?
Yes, where possible, that disclaimer should be there. And I think it's always going to be a balance to the regulation and the cost of the regulation. In this case, the cost would be of all the platforms that you post this text or this purported news articles. They should have the engineering capability to actually, do this in real time. And again, that should be factored in terms of, how do you want the flow of information to go, particularly when we have things like TikTok and others. And in some ways, you find some of those, AI model-generated videos in particular tagged or sort of, watermarked in such a way. But again, it must be something that, particularly because these technologies are not local but generally global, that we're probably able to come up with an international standard for things like this. And I think the United Nations has now set up almost like an AI COP that will be wrestling with some of these issues. And I think we have a few South Africans on that panel as well. That might help, canvass some of these issues.
And up to now, there's been reactions from many people saying this is a complete joke and then blaming the minister and blaming others, right? But you're suggesting, and I've seen the piece that you've put together, that in fact, and I'm paraphrasing, this could well be the best thing that could happen, because now it forces us to take a step back and understand there has to be this rigorous examination of this type of information in the crafting of policy from now. So we're never going to make that same mistake again, are we?
I would imagine so. And I mean, this is not a lesson only to government. I think it's across many an institution, that's crafting, including strategies and corporates. It's the fact that, it's in some institutions you find these tools, being used to augment, the capacity of some of the stuff. So, you would imagine that these types of guardrails, I should be, across multiple institutions, not only government. But I think that this is an interesting case study in a world where there's a lot of emerging evidence of mishaps like this happening.
Just the last thing then, going forward as we look at lessons learned, and you've touched on a few already, but what else would you want to see in terms of the guardrails going forward?
Yeah, I think it probably, one of the things we want to do is perhaps identify fairly high risk, areas where deployment of AI, perhaps there's ease of access because these tools are inundating us every day. But however, the consequence of that, is fairly significant. And a key policy like this is case in point, where we want to, at least have, some sort of documented review. I could potentially see, areas of audit being looked into where, some of those things are caught and are part of, the sort of, test the working papers that auditors have going forward. But again, it's going to have to be and unique to each organization to have, a risk matrix where they understand where risks from AI might arise. And also trying to identify and flag that. But again, from a development of policy perspective, is often, you could replace the AI by consulting the experts as well.
Okay.
Right?
And I mean, lastly, in your point, and I'm quoting you saying, perhaps the irony is that the human is supposed to be at the center of policy adoption, including in the draft policy itself. So you're saying now we know that there's no way, if anybody felt we can leave out the human element and press delete, this proves that it cannot be that way, right?
Yes. I think modern day AI is most powerful when it's augmented with sort of human ingenuity and human knowledge. And we find it in every way. Almost each and every tool gets better. I mean, most of the software development enterprises are replacing engineers with AI. But in most cases, you find that the code that AI writes is much longer, sometimes inefficient than what modern day humans do, what a typical engineer would do. But then you find the combination of the two relatively quite powerful in terms of troubleshooting and so on. So we think, and again, we were trying to regulate AI. We used AI to do that. And again, we saw that perhaps in this context, tongue-in-cheek, AI cannot regulate itself.
Now we know. Professor Rendani Mbuba, the AI expert and associate professor at the Wits University School of Statistics and Actuarial Science. And perhaps nowadays, thanks you for your time, we can now get more people who are AI experts. It is such a growth industry. This is the National Pulse.
Get a free optical frame when you get tested at Specsavers this April. Purchase a comprehensive eye examination and get your optical frame free up to the value of 1,000 Rand. Choose your free frame from our wide range of trendy, affordable styles. Get tested today at your nearest Specsavers or book online. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
Right, we're going to talk about another important issue coming up in a moment or so, but before we get there, Top Billing brings you the very latest, the very best in lifestyle, luxury and inspiration. From breathtaking homes and dream destinations to exclusive access to the people shaping culture and success. This is where style meets substance and every story shines. Well, tune into the new season of Top Billing. It starts this week, Thursday at 7 p.m. on S3 with a repeat on a Tuesday thereafter at 9:30 p.m. on SABC1. And you can also stream Top Billing on SABC Plus. Top Billing, the best of the good life.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
By the way, you want to add your thoughts to the COSATU conversation, feel free to do just that. I'm pretty sure many people have a view on that one. You may also want to add your thoughts to the AI conversation, not so much about whatever sloppiness occurred, where an actual policy was AI generated, right? With all its concerns that come with it. And by the way, there was an interview with the journalist who found the story or exposed it that was done this morning, and you can catch the podcast of that as well. That was done on the Breakfast Show. In the meantime, we've been talking earlier on about marches. Well, what about not just in South Africa, but reaction from the global community? It's come from the United Nations Secretary General. It's also come from Ghana, and there are huge concerns around that. With me is Lito Intoba, the political analyst at the University of the Free State. Thank you for joining us here on the National Pulse.
Good evening, Ashraf, and good evening to your listeners.
Good evening.
Oh, I'm from the Central University of Technology, by the way.
Oh, actually, I've got the University of Free State. My apology for that, right? Central University of Technology. Got that. Right. Let's talk then about, so there's been march after march in the last few days, including one today, and the central theme is undocumented foreign nationals out on the one hand, but it's also taken a step further where there's this narrative that's coming from, different people to say, no foreign nationals, no matter what, and they can't get jobs here. We ourselves are starving. How is that being played out in other countries? Ghana is one example. The United Nations is another. There could be others too.
I think it's being played out in a way in which is exaggerated, right? For the way in which it's depicted to the rest of the world is so almost out of context, and out of that context comes this idea that if you are in South Africa and you're a foreigner, whether you're documented or not, there's this huge, massive move to hurt and maim you because somebody supposes you're not here or you're not here legally. And I think that's one of the first problems. But then secondly, the way in which our media also covers it is also problematic. But lastly is the government response to the concerns laid by the people in the march. So two things can be true, that it's bad that there are people who are undocumented, but then also the way in which complaining about those things happens is also really bad, and that those two things don't necessarily lead to the ends that you want to do. So it becomes a self-defeating mission. And I think that's the way in which we should start to conceptualize and think about it, that this is a race to the bottom and not a race to a solution necessarily.
Yeah. So what should then happen? Because those that are marching, and there are growing numbers, even those that don't march, right, who like away with foreign nationals, undocumented, that is, right, they are saying that various authorities, last week the Durban or Tegwini region, this today I know they were in Pretoria, the Tshwane area, but others, they're saying in fact they're being turned a blind eye. When they're reporting issues at local council level, councils are doing nothing about it. They are on the ground. They see jobs, if not taken, being blocked out because they're going to other foreign nationals, documented or undocumented. And in their efforts to plead to do something about it, they believe that nothing's been done. So therefore, they have to do something on their own. How is that playing out for you?
I think, one, the concerns are valid, right? If you see, and those concerns will always play themselves out in those sectors where the poorest meet each other, right? So if, for instance, the one with the gentleman most recently, where they found a Ghanaian gentleman who is a nail tech, right? And so that would be the question. But I think the question is being asked in the wrong way to the wrong people, right? Because at the end of the day, everybody, every human being will exploit any kind of loophole that gives them advantage, whether it's your country or not, right? And that's how you see capitalism thriving anyway. It's an exploitation of niches, right? Mm-hmm. Firstly, the first question that I think that the marchers must then ask is that, one, how does somebody who is a nail tech come into South Africa and get granted the ability to do their job, right? And so it should be their job to go physically rip out every single nail tech from every salon that they come across. They must attack the systemic problem that then exists, because the systemic problem is a much bigger problem. Is that somebody who is a nail tech was able to get off a plane at OR Tambo and there's no policing of where he or she goes after the fact. It means that there is a huge hole in policing in South Africa, and that's the issue that they are systemically trying to fix. Not necessarily that there's a nail tech who is in KZN. And if you address it at the level in which you need to escalate it to, then the problem starts to solve itself and doesn't need the marching that seems to be incentivized by the hysteria that it's causing. Basically causing, and the hype is then causing the people to mass towards that hysteric place. I think that's one that's disproportionate. But secondly, I think the people who in themselves are not here in a proper manner should start to address that issue in their communities, because the first port of call, it seems that when South Africans who complain about somebody who is a foreigner, whether it be black or white, it's always called some kind of Afrophobia or xenophobia. But it is just because the laws of the country say if you're here, you then have to be doing something special in a special dispensation of some sort and have a work visa, right? If I go to Ghana, for instance, that's the same thing that's required of me. I don't go there because I see a niche. I go there because I'm called to go there for a specialization. Yeah. And once that specialization is filled, by the way, I have to make my way back home. So that also in their community must be addressed, and not necessarily calling it xenophobia every single time that there's a call out of somebody who shouldn't be here.
Yeah. So just lastly then, what do you think government is doing, should do? If I put this to you to say, the government is currently not owning the foreign national narrative. It's being owned by others on talk shows, during marches, and that's hugely problematic. What should the government be doing?
Well, the government should enforce its laws. And remember, that's the first criticism of the ANC's government and government policies. They have amazing and great policies and bad policing of those policies throughout, whether it be underage liquor sales, up until the problem of foreign nationals. So there's a bad will way in which government is engaging the problems of the day. And at the time, they seem lackadaisical when problems arise. It seems like they're very divorced from where the problem are arising in the first place, right? And I think, secondly, the government must start then not just to police the thing, but to be seen policing the thing. And so at the moment, it seems, and so if you have that void that nature abhors so much, then anybody will fill the void, especially those who fill it recklessly, right? Because the process of getting a foreign national who's here illegally to be deported is one that is very circumspect, very legal heavy. But those who are reckless will then go to Ashraf, beat him and say, you shouldn't be here, which is all unjust and should not be condoned, or even shouldn't be allowed to happen in the first place. And so there should be policing on both sides. Police that those who feel like Ashraf shouldn't be here should not go out and haphazardly beat him, but on the other side, police that they're not there in the first place. So both of these positions can be true, and both injustices must be handled on an equal basis, because injustice must be handled one way.
Well, all the more it requires a major rethink in terms of the implementation, because it is just dominating our national agendas every single day. Lita Ntoba, thank you for your time. Political analyst at the Central University of Technology. Thanks for your input here on the National Pulse. I welcome reaction from you, the listener, wherever you may be in the country, around the world, on the continent. Let's hear you out. This is the National Pulse. News headlines here, just going 5:30. Here's Greg House.
Quick look at those headlines. Government has officially extended the temporary reduction of the fuel levy. The Office of the Auditor General at the Ekhululeni Municipality east of Johannesburg says it's evaluating audit-related matters after some officials were implicated at the Matlanga Commission. And the DRC president has vowed to deal with corruption affecting their mining sector. A full update at 6.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's been a busy homebound run on Joburg's N3 going south. A crash now before London Road. The traffic coming down from Limbro Park remains heavy. And then really from Edenvale all the way down to Germiston stays heavy. There are some roadworks on that N3 going southbound in that Bedfordview area. Lights are off on 14th Avenue at the N1. Very heavy from Randburg on the N1 south towards 14th Avenue. And the R59 is queuing if you're on your way to the Val. That busy highway jammed up from the Reading N12 interchange all the way down towards the Swartkoppies off-ramp. And a crash on the N12 before Snake Road, backing traffic from Boxburg going into the Benoni area. Durban, the Alpine Road run through Springfield was busy earlier. We've been tracking some delays, but that all looks okay. Inunda Road, touch on the slow side out through Springfield as well as you go up towards the N2 highway. Some traffic light issues on the Higginson Highway at Havenside. If you're coming off the N2, that southbound ramp onto the M1's heavy, and then Higginson Highway going into the Chatsworth area very slow. And Cape Town Baden-Powell Drive now closed between Walter Sisulu and Muay. That's due to protesting, so you'll be diverting in some reasonably heavy traffic around the bottom of Khayelitsha. And chaos today around Thornton. There's roadworks on the N7 north at 4 Trekker Road. That's really big coming from Epping into Goodwood. Viking Way is jammed up into that, and local routes through that Thornton area seeing so much traffic. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkapele.
Right, Tumi, you got your eyes on that Simbini Classic, right?
Yes, Akani Simbini opened his season clocking 9.98 seconds to win the men's 100 meter at the Simbini Classic. He beat Chaswell Johnson, who ran 10.07 seconds, while Aaron Brown finished third in 10.14 seconds. PJ Austin beat Andre de Gras in another heat, posting 10.07 seconds to the Canadians' 10.12 seconds. Meanwhile, track legend Alison Felix has revealed plans for a comeback at the age of 40, aiming to compete at the Los Angeles Olympics in 2028. The 11-time Olympic medalist says that she wants to be vulnerable and flip expectations on their head as she returns to full-time training. Felix, who is a mother of 2 and a member of the IOC Athletes Commission, retired in 2022 after becoming an outspoken advocate for athlete mothers. In rugby, French rugby authorities have doubled down on their opposition to World Rugby's 20-minute red card trial, warning that it poses a major threat to player welfare. The trial, introduced in elite competitions last year, allows a send-off player to be replaced after 20 minutes. French officials insist permanent red cards do not ruin contests, citing data showing only 60% of teams reduced to 14 players lose. They have proposed alternatives, including renaming the sanction as an orange card and giving referees and the bunker system clearer powers. Southern Hemisphere nations largely support the trial, but the opposition remains strong in the north. In terms of cricket, Proteas woman captain Laura Fulvard has says that she was pleased with her team's batting within the power play in the T20 series against India, and says that it was one of their Achilles heels in the past few months. Fulvard was speaking after a comprehensive 4-1 series win over the visitors, which saw her named the player of the series yesterday. While South Africa often needed rescuing from the lower order in previous matches, Fulvard was happy with the top order within the first 6 overs of the matches, something that will stand them in good stead for the upcoming T20 World Cup.
I'm very happy with our power play batting. I'm very happy with how much intent we've showed up top. I think all 5 of the power plays were pretty good, and it's something in the past we've perhaps not been the best at. We've sort of been a slow starters and had massive finishes, with Chloe, Nadine, Kayla, Durkee all coming at the end. So very happy with how we've started in the series. I think it's put us in good positions. And I'm happy with how our death bowling has come along. I think New Zealand, we had a tough time bowling at the death, and it's been really nice to see that change this series.
In football, Richards Bay coach Ronnie Gabriel says that his team is growing in confidence, and he's been impressed by the quality of football that they've produced in recent weeks. The Natal Rich Boys vowed to make Umhlatuze Sports Ground a fortress where teams are not guaranteed maximum points, and they've executed that plan almost to perfection. They have beaten Kaizer Chiefs and held title contenders Orlando Pirates and Mamelodi Sundowns to draws, with the defending champions failing to find the back of the net.
We felt that we could get something from Sundowns as well.
And I feel that at the moments went our way and we took our chances on the transition. We could have scored at least 2 goals on the transitions. But be that as it may, we are happy with this 1 point here, and we'll have to regroup, come back at home and try to win in our next league fixture here at home. Sundowns, we knew coming to the game, possession-based team. We allowed them to have the ball for lengthy periods of the game. We defended on a middle third to a low block. Our plan was to utilize the spaces behind the opposition's rest defense, and it paid dividends. We felt that we had some good moments on the transitions. The speed of Barnes, the speed of Sasko, the individual capabilities and the qualitative superiority of the individuals on the top, they gave Sundowns a torrid time.
In rowing, SASCOC First Vice President Lwandile Simelane has welcomed Rowing South Africa's new sustainability fund aimed at raising 50 million rand to support athletes competing internationally. The initiative, unveiled earlier this month, aligns with SASCOC's strategic pillar of governance and sustainability. And Simelane has stressed that the government support will never be enough on its own, urging federations to explore creative solutions to secure long-term stability. On that note, it is a wrap from my side.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Tumi. We're going to connect again tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow it is.
By the way, there's Champions League games on tonight. Let's see what happens.
This Freedom Month, we reflect, we remember, and we celebrate how far we've come. 30 years into democracy, South Africa continues to shape a future grounded in justice, equality, and opportunity for all, under the theme Freedom and the Rule of Law. 30 years of democratic citizenship. SAFM will bring you all things freedom, the voices, the stories, and the conversations that matter. Join us as we honor the journey and explore what freedom means today. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, Jimmy, you've been away for a week in China, which means I need to listen to your travelogue. But I have a sense, sticking with that theme, you're going to talk about global markets today, right?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to our listeners. That is certainly the theme, because even though I've been away, the markets clearly have not taken a break, and we're seeing that play out across the board. If I'm looking at my screen, I came back to a sea of red across the equities front. We'll get into the markets in a second, a sense of what we're going to be talking about on the show today. We're going to be taking a look at the global trade situation. I'm going to be speaking to the team at Oxford Economics International, getting a sense of how they are potentially viewing what is unfolding in the global trade space. They put out a global trade tracker that they look at on a periodic basis, trying to look at some of the moving parts that affect a global trade. And I think it'll be interesting to see how they're seeing some of the global conflicts that are unfolding at the moment. We've also got a conversation taking a look at some of the other developments that we've been seeing on the side of the fuel price conversations. We know that we just got confirmation from National Treasury, of course, that the fuel price or the fuel levy extension will be in place for the month of May as well. So some relief to consumers there. I don't know for how much longer that will be the case, but we're going to be taking a look at the impact that will potentially have on jet fuel prices as well, because there are some concerns around whether or not supply and pricing will be able to be maintained in that space. We also have a conversation taking a look at the artificial intelligence landscape. We know that we're dealing with our own artificial intelligence legislation that we're trying to put forward, but more than that, we're dealing with the likes of international artists looking to protect themselves against artificial intelligence. Most recently announced Taylor Swift announcing that earlier today. We're going to be speaking about this with Arthur Goldstick of Worldwide Works. I want to get his thoughts around the AI world and the evolutions that we're seeing there. It's still driving global trade. It's still driving some of the investment decisions into markets like Nvidia and other companies, but it is also still having an impact on other companies. We know that the likes of Meta have recently had a deal worth $2 billion blocked by the Chinese government on matters of national security concerns. So artificial intelligence very much in focus and still the theme there that we continue to carry from 2025. We're going to be looking at that in a bit more detail, and because it's Tuesday, we've got a property conversation. We're going to be speaking to the Radisson Hotel Group around their development in Umhlanga, their development in Mpumalanga, as well as what they're planning to do on the African continent. I want to get a sense of how they're approaching their strategy at this point with all of the dynamics that are playing out in the leisure space as well. Before those conversations, as I promised, a sense of some of the market movements that have been taking place throughout the day. It's been a red day on the equities front. The Nikkei in Tokyo down about more than 1%. Shanghai was down almost a third, and Hong Kong was down almost a full percent. Australia was down 2/3%. South Africa down almost 2% in the case of the all share, more than 2% in the case of the top 40. The resource stocks down 5%. Gold prices back at $4,500 a fine ounce. Silver back at 72. Platinum back below $2,000 a fine ounce, and palladium back below 1,400. The only real commodity that is on the up, unfortunately, is the Brent crude price, north of $110 a barrel there. So anyone that went long on oil from around $80-90 a barrel might be smiling at this point. But for the rest of us, not having such a good time. The Rand not doing much better against all of the majors, recovering slightly against the euro and British pound at 32 against the British pound and 19.35 against the euro, but 16 Rand 52 cents against the US dollar. The price of a Bitcoin, 75,900 or 76,000 odd dollars a Bitcoin, depending on what time you're looking at that, around 1.255 million Rand for a Bitcoin. Interestingly, on the gold price, the price of gold per kilo below 2.5 million Rand per kilo there. I've got lots to dig into as I return to try and make sense of these market movements and some of the developments we've been seeing. But of course, those conversations after the 6 p.m. news. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Thanks for that, Jimmy Wright. 1 hour of your show coming up. Looking forward to that conversation or conversations about all things around finance and the markets, including AI, which you just cannot ignore. Right, we're going to get to a wrap of the Madlanga Commission, and we'll also take your calls as well, because your views matter. All of that coming up next.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
Right, let's today being day 98, would you believe, of the Madlanga Commission, and they suspended the Tshwane Metropolitan Police Department's deputy chief, that's Umashi Dlamini, returned to the commission for cross-examination. Dlamini faces allegations of being part of a tender rigging scheme within the municipality, and he was probed on evidence brought by the commission that suggests Dlamini colluded with internal and external actors to try and sway the awarding of TMPD tenders towards his preferred bidders. Now, amongst the issues today, Dlamini was probed by Commissioner Baloyi on what he meant when referring to the CFO as someone, and I quote, someone who would do great things for us, and what knowledge he had of the CFO's conduct to make such a statement in relation to Nkosi. Take a listen. Right. We will get to that in just a moment. Okay, we're going to get to that in just a second. We need to hear that too, absolutely. Let me remind you.
What do you know about the
right,
CFO
let me just see if we can just rewind that
done,
back slightly.
What
and then we can play that from the beginning. Here we are.
do you know about the CFO, that he has done great things for somebody that makes you say that he will do great things for Sergeant Nkosi? What do you know about the CFO?
Commissioner, I don't know the CFO much, that he has done something great things for someone. These are feelings that you have to say this person will be able to look after this person, nurture him into a particular direction.
But you told us in your evidence that your interaction with the CFO is in meetings of the TMP of the city. That's your limited interaction with him. How do you, if that's all you know about him?
Yes.
How do you know that he's a person who will do great things, who has a propensity to do great things and will do so for Sergeant Nkosi, for you to make that statement?
Commissioner, perhaps if we can think of great things as material things, then we'll be wrong in that assertion, because great things will come in the welfare of looking after someone that is well mentally and otherwise he get good advices. You don't need to attach material things to great things.
So you know that the CFO will provide mental wellness, to use your word, support to the CFO.
He'll provide guidance.
To Sergeant Nkosi.
He'll provide
Even though you have
guidance.
only met him in formal 2, 3, 4, 5 meetings of the municipality, and you have no personal relationship with him, because that's what you've told us. You have absolutely no personal relationship with him. You don't even talk to him on the phone. You know that he will support Sergeant Nkosi. That you know, it's something so personal that has nothing to do with work. You know that the CFO will do for Sergeant Nkosi, even though you don't know the CFO at all.
You don't need to know someone for years to understand the character or how a person perhaps behaves and so forth. I can meet you twice, then I realize to say, here my daughter or my son will be in good hand to be nurtured.
Right, so that's the one thing. There's more, of course. The Matthew Cheskelson probed Dlamini on a message which said, here's the mandate, Victor.
The covering message that says, Captain, nai mandate to Victor apiwe yona. Captain, this is the mandate that was given to Victor, and you explained that it was given to Victor by Nico. You recall that?
Correct.
Now, at the time, you then explained the next message, the message at 9:03, Captain, find below our vehicles for land to be given Kumpuetu in order of priority with six company names on it. You said that what had happened is that after Sergeant Nkosi got the message saying that Victor had received a mandate from Nico for 7 companies, he contacted you and said, I want you to find another 7 companies for us to check for compliance. You recall that? And that's why you sent him the list in chat number 1 at page 440. Do you recall your evidence in that regard?
That's correct.
Now, that evidence presupposes that Sergeant Nkosi would have contacted you at some stage between the 2 messages that you sent to him. The message that you sent to him with Victor's mandate from Nico, which was sent at 8:02 p.m., and the message that you sent to him with the new list of 6 companies at 9:03 p.m. You recall?
Correct.
Now, I pointed out to you that there is no WhatsApp communication between you and Sergeant Nkosi between 8:02 p.m. and 9:03 p.m. You accept that?
I'll have to verify that because last time you said these are not calls that incoming, it's chat messages, and today it has changed. Some of them are calls and so forth, because I saw there's an
sorry,
WhatsApp.
sorry, Deputy.
Okay, and that's where we stop there. Just a reminder that other things to note, Advocate Cheskelson said that Suleiman Karim, who is due to appear tomorrow, has submitted a medical certificate indicating he's confined to bed, so not appearing tomorrow. Remember, he was in hospital in ICU, I think, 2 weeks back. And then Brown Makhotsi also seeks the recusal of Advocate Chaskelson as the lead evidence leader of his testimony. The substantive application is expected to be filed by Mogotsi's lawyers tomorrow, by the end of the day, sometime tomorrow. That is the wrap of the Madlanga Commission reports for today. There's details, a lot more coming up tonight, 8 o'clock, from 8 to 9. Here on SAFM.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
And by the way, just talking about the Madlanga Commission, there's a report where the Justice Department have confirmed that it does not have enough money to cover the costs of the 6-month extension of the Madlanga Commission. Remember, it was extended now. The Minister, Kubai, says she's already approached Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana to consider a budget allocation, an additional, that is. At the moment, the 147 million rand budgeted by the Commission, 123 million rands has been spent so far. Right, let's get to callers. Hassan in Joburg, hi.
Thanks, Ashraf, for having me.
It's a pleasure. Go for it.
You know, Ashraf, my thinking on the AI policy, we all are very excited about how the government was caught out in this gotcha moment that they got 6 out of the 67 citations wrong or fabricated by generative AI.
Yeah.
But I think that the discussion has to move on to what this policy will look like in the next few weeks. I must tell you, Ashraf, it will be exactly the same. It will be the same policy. Okay.
So you mean the fact that it may be AI generated refers to the intelligence of AI, but in reality it may mirror that to a large degree, even if experts sat around the table and submit it.
But my point is the policy will be the same. There will be scant references to water. There's very little reference to water and electricity use. There's even land use that AI takes up, the data centers that it will share. I heard how President Ramaphosa talks about South Africa's already got 55 data centers in our country. Data centers that are supposed to keep these infrastructure cool use up portable drinking water. I've said this before on the show. I think when our president, I said it was in Mbongi for Microsoft. I remember that conversation we had. So really, Ashraf, what I'm saying to you, let's get over this moment. The policy will be the same, and I would really invite you and our National Pulse here. There's a bigger conversation about the substance, and we're trying to convene a meeting on the 15th as civil society about what this will mean for us.
Okay, point noted, and I agree with you. Yeah, I mean, we've discussed it. I agree. What's the nuts and bolts now going forward? Point taken, Hassan in Joburg, right? Pule in Matlosana. Hi, Pule.
Yes, how are you?
I'm good indeed, right? What's your point?
All right, man. My point is straightforward. You know, Ashta, releasing personal information is a very serious matter.
Mm-hmm.
We have these terms, callers that we get that you cannot even call back, and they'll ask you information and want to give you insurance. And after you have given them your information, you lose money in the bank. But you cannot do the paper trail. You cannot even call back who called you, which company called you. Before we used to have at least the area code, it will be 011, 011, then you get a number, then we'll make a follow-up. I don't know how can we as South Africans address this matter. Somebody call with 031 and other numbers, but that number I cannot call it back, and this person has given me an insurance, you know. So if they are false, you can't go back, and you have to give your banking details, ID number, and all these things. How can this thing be attended to? That when this company called, they must call when Ashraf's company calls. They must call you with a landline number that you can call it back, like before.
Yeah, but I think the broader issue is how come they got your numbers in the first place, which is a big issue around personal identity.
You refuse to give somebody your identity, your information, but this person is hiding you. He can calling you with a private call and expect you to cooperate and give me.
Well, then don't answer that call if it's private. I mean, that's your right too. Pule in Matlosana, thanks for that. Mastermind in Acorn, go for it.
Good afternoon, evening, Ashraf.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yes. No, Ashraf, I want to just comment about the Freedom Day. Freedom Day, yes, is a good day that as a South Africa, actually, we are celebrating for our democracy. But now it looks like it's recommended only one organization, while this day is for when we are talking about the freedom. There are many collaboration, multi-parties that they were together. But now the officials, most of the ANC organizations, they don't mention those organizations also. So for an example, like Bobaba Usobukwe, they can also representing to the national so that they may understand them also. Abobaba of Black Consciousness Movement, so they also supposed to mention in this day, because it's not for the celebration of the day of the occasion of ANC. If you can look where our president, the first president of the democracy, Utatu Mandela, and he was doing very well. After that, the people after him in that organization, where he coming from to be a first president of the democracy, the people, this organization doesn't doing well to the society. The society has got a many crises of such as crime, such as hunger, such as higher unemployment. You see, all that, Mr. Ashraf, they have to take it into a consideration, not recommended one ANC while they're not doing well. Thank you so much.
All right, you've made your point. Thanks for that, Mastermind. In fact, there's news from the SIU where Special Investigative Unit, and they've implicated a whole lot of monies that have been channeled for media into the wrong places, specifically the Sunday Times editor Makhura Sefara. So that's the breaking news. He's been implicated as a result of that. The Sunday Times then have put Makhura Sefara on leave, pending an independent investigation on that story. There's other quick comments on the ANC before we wrap up. ANC SACP.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Will the ANC and SACP will be able to kiss and make up? Never in a million years. They can try in Luthuli House, but on the ground, it will never happen. It's that time, Ashraf, when we are saying, but we told you that it will end up like this. They'll never kiss and make up. It's done. Done completely. Anonymous.
Okay, it's done. I wonder if others feel the same way. Are they completely done, poles apart? What?
Good afternoon, Ashraf, SFM listeners, and the entire production team. As a worker myself, I see the alliance of COSATU with ANC as a gross contradiction, as ANC is the biggest employer in the land. Therefore, I think COSATU should form a strong alliance with SACP, the vanguard of the working class, so that they will be able to defend the struggle and advance the progress of the working class. Thank you, Ashraf. Bongani Nkosi Paula Office in Mpumalanga.
Thank you. Got that, Bongani. Here's another one, COSATU, before we conclude.
Hi, Sir Ashraf. Sir Ashraf, you can tell from the spokesperson of COSATU that whatever he is saying, even he himself, he doesn't believe in it anymore. And the question can only be to him, whose interests are they exactly serving? Because ANC no longer serves us, the workers. It's no longer serving us. Is it serving their pockets? Is this the interest now? Is this what COSATU has become? Because SACP is taking a decision to serve its people.
I don't know. I mean, you're making lots of allegations about it, but let's leave it at that. That's the show. We'll have podcasts up of some of the big conversations we've had, if not tonight, and certainly overnight, so sometime tomorrow. Check it out on the website, safm.co.za. Thanks for listening. Don't forget, 3 p.m. tomorrow. Suggest you set your alarms now. Here's Greg Host with the news at 6.
Thank you again, Ashraf.